everybody, welcome to Reaction Shots for July 2019. We're a week late. Huber is out this month because he is grieving with his family after the loss of his brother.
I love Huber. Can I just say
sad.
that?
I love Huber too. He's
a great
amazing. Just a font of positivity and energy, and we miss him dearly. He should be back soon.
I mean, I don't know him personally, but I love what I know of him.
Yeah, he's great.
Right.
But I delayed a week because of that, and also because then we could have these fabulous guests. So please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I'm Daniel James. I'm a film and video game composer. I've worked on Metal Gear Solid 5, some Call of Duties, a Terminator movie, things like that. And I'm here to be like the voice of the music creation world. That's my role today.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Damn,
and of
that
course,
is cool.
Returning
I'm just
favorite. Returning favorite, just me. No, Matthew Walden. Tell people. We get grief in Mysterious Monsters that we don't explain who people are.
I saw that. I read
Tell
the
us-
comments.
tell us
Who the hell
everything
is
about
this
yourself.
guy?
It's mysterious.
Tell us everything.
Well, I met Ian on Game Trailers. I used to work on there. I used to be a writer on Jeff Keighley's show. I went on to do a bunch of music television shows. I'm a producer and writer on hip hop TV shows. So I've done a couple of those. There's a new one coming out on Netflix in October.
What's it called? Are you allowed to
Maybe
say?
November, December, sometime this year. It's got Cardi B and Chance the Rapper in it. It's kind of fun. It's called Rhythm and Flow.
Cool.
So, and then I write for video games occasionally too. That's a new development. So pretty excited about that. I can't name those yet, but
Wow.
Oh, you write for the
That's-
games, not about them. Like on them.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my deal.
I have cool friends, turns out. I didn't even know half of that. Okay. And I'm Ian. I just, do whatever I want. So before we get into the topic, and we're going to get into it as quickly as we can because I think it's going to be a meaty one. Real quick, though, we'd like to start off with what have you liked lately? Have you seen or listened to or read or watched anything lately that you liked?
Man, I've been watching. I mean, did you watch the last season of Game of Thrones? I assume you did.
I did,
Does that still count as lately?
Sure.
Musically, how did you feel about music in that?
I was distracted by other things.
By other aspects of it.
So I didn't notice it as much.
Man, new.
If I'm honest.
I haven't seen much new. What was Endgame was the last thing I saw in the movies. I mean,
What do you think of the music in
big
that?
superhero music? Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. How did da 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 da? Did you ever see this video? There was a video that went around YouTube, and it was someone saying, "Oh, the Avengers music's crap because you can't remember the music," and
Right.
he'd go around and be like, "Sing Star Wars," people
Right,
sing Star
yeah.
Wars. Nowadays, I bet if you did that, people could go. Dun,
Maybe the
dun,
Avengers
dun, bam, bam.
theme.
Just the theme.
Yeah,
I can't remember a single track from the movie, but I
But
know
if you
that
changed,
melody.
if you did two different notes after what you just sang, it would be Harry Potter.
Really?
Da na 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 na. After what you just sang,
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter. So yeah, I don't know.
Endgame. That was a good
But
movie.
Endgame was dope,
the
yeah.
thing, I was never really into superhero movies for some reason. Just they didn't click with me. My wife made me watch Infinity War, and I was like, oh
That's a
shit,
good
there's
one.
a whole lot going on
Yeah.
here. And it was like that morbid curiosity. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I need to know that story. So I go back and watch that movie. And I feel like that's actually a fun way to watch them. So I watched Infinity War, and I knew that it all went to. Can you swear on this shit? It all went to
Oh,
shit.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm bad, terrible language. But it all went to shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Shame on you. Clean it up.
Clean it up.
I'm sorry. But like
Children look
you
up
see
to
all,
you.
you see all these stories going wrong, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm interested. And it's actually interesting. I mean, like this is a music show. It's interesting to see like how some of the little themes and motifs from those movies.
Yeah.
Like Black Panther was the one that stood out the most.
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
like the rhythm. I can't
Yeah.
do the rhythm like off the top of my
Yeah,
head,
yeah.
and like the pumping trombones and stuff.
Yeah.
Like when they come through the but spoilers, like the end of Endgame.
Yeah.
When things happen.
Yeah.
And you hear. There's got to be a statute of limitations on spoilers for Endgame, right? I don't know. But I mean, whenever you see Black Panther in like one of
Yeah.
those Avengers movies, you get that little
There's the
motif.
snap
That
and the
boom, boom, boom,
well,
boom.
in Infinity War, when he says, "I know someone who can help," and then the Black Panther drums come in, everyone in my theater was like, "Yeah!" before they even cut to Wakanda.
No, yeah.
Power of
powerful.
music, baby.
But yeah, and sorry, just to go back. So Endgame actually made me go back and watch a load of the other ones. So like I'm on like this big heroic orchestral
Oh,
sound.
funny.
That's in my head at the minute.
Yeah.
The big, yeah.
Yeah, I mean there are 5 other good ones probably.
Mm-hmm.
3 other really good ones and 2 other okay ones.
Yeah. That's all I've been watching.
What about you? See anything you like?
Yeah. I've been watching. Criterion Collection has this.
I bet you have.
Yeah, they have this gigantic box set of all the Ingmar Bergman movies ever made. I've been watching like 15 of those, and it's been a spiritual experience.
I bet.
I've loved them. They're so incredible, and he has a reputation for being like really dark and serious, and he gives you a lot of that, which I enjoy. But they're really funny and interesting and experimental. And I've never been happier watching movies than in the past couple of weeks. I watch like 2 or 3 Ingmar Bergman movies a day.
Wow.
And I'm a better person for it, I think. I
That's
love that guy.
Stamina.
Yeah.
We had him on for just because I thought that your like proclivities and personality would be a good fit for. We did an episode called "Movies That Wrecked Us," like really really emotionally disturbing movies, and he like went through and like watched all of the ones.
Oh, it's been a month just disturbing myself.
Yeah. Dude.
Just came out the other side, had changed man.
Yeah, he was just like, he was like
I mean, that's what I
shell-shocked.
want from a movie. I want to be different.
I mean, from one movie though, not 20 in a row.
You gotta watch like Into the Spider-Verse after each one to like palate cleanse.
I have no sense of moderation in my life when it comes to anything.
That'd be like watching all the Transformers action sequences back to back, just
God.
continuously.
Visual
you know what I mean?
noise.
Well, that's what I'm saying for the emotion.
Yeah.
For the emotion, that'd be
That's
horrible.
a wild metaphor for Ingmar Bergman emotional state, but I kind of love it. Okay.
How about you? What have you been watching?
I just watched Midsommar. My girlfriend's Norwegian, so I have to like, try to say it right. I thought it was okay.
Oh, okay.
I liked it, but I thought, it's not his. I mean, we can do a longer discussion about it, but Hereditary in this, I know he's doing it on purpose, but his use of foreshadowing is so intense that it basically makes his movies super predictable for me, which I find interesting. It's kind of a weird experience. I like more of like an upstream color, kind of like, if you get the metaphor, you understand the movie, but if you missed it, you're like, okay, what's happening? I like that. Whereas Midsommar is like, here's exactly what's going to happen if you're paying attention to the stuff in the shot, and then it all just happens.
Especially in a scary movie, you need more of a sense of a mystery.
Yeah. Like in Hereditary, when the thing that happens, have you seen Hereditary?
I have seen Hereditary, yeah.
When the big shocking thing that happens, I kind of laughed because they foreshadowed it so hard. I knew something like that was going to happen. So when it happened, I laughed, and it made me sound like a monster person. But I was just laughing because I was like, oh, okay, yep, they told you that was going to happen 4 times. It was whatever.
You know what? That's my favorite experience in a movie is when just one person finds something funny. My wife is usually that person, and she'll laugh in a movie theater by herself, and the whole audience will hear her laughing, and they'll start laughing just because they think it's funny that she found something funny.
Yeah.
It's very contagious. I love that.
When I have that experience with Haneke films, Michael Haneke.
Oh, yeah.
Like Funny Games is straight up a comedy, and the joke is on the audience, But like I was in the theater and I was like, oh man, this is pretty funny, and everyone else was like so depressed, and I was like, oh, I'm a crazy person. Anyways, enough of that. I feel like I did see something else that I really liked. This pin makes me think of Russian Doll, even though it's not.
Oh yeah, that's Kate Bush. My pal made me a Kate Bush. It was his birthday, and he gave me a Kate Bush pin on his birthday. He's a sweet dude. My friend Gabe. Oh. He's a nice guy. Hello, Gabe.
Hey, Gabe. Hey. Shout out to Gabe. Anyway, this month we're talking about film scores. Not the Rotten Tomatoes score or A, B, C, D, but the music, the soundtrack, which technically is a different thing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, so score and soundtrack get confused all the time. Soundtracks usually...
Elucidate us.
Yeah, well, when it says soundtrack, it does overlap. Sometimes you'll get original soundtrack as well, and it'll have score on it. But scores generally, like original score is when a composer comes in and they write like music, orchestral, synth, whatever it is. Soundtrack is when you get like licensed music and pop songs or songs written for the movie. Like things that aren't orchestral pieces, things that aren't contextual pieces that need to be in the movie.
So
specifically,
we actually have for the viewers here, but we'll talk through it for the listeners. Daniel brought a visual aid here of what would be called a score, probably.
Yeah, so that's a conductor's score from a piece of music. It was actually a stage play. It's a stage play I wrote, so it should go. It goes like that far, but yeah. Anyway, let's extend it that far.
It's a big old thing.
This feels like old
Flip
TV
through
show.
it.
Flip through it. So this is just a piece. This is like This is like the old way of doing piracy, you know?
Yeah.
They're like,
Zoom in. And
zoom in, steal
this music.
Well, there's one. This page is like empty, but yeah. So basically, this is what the conductor. So a conductor's the guy at the front, you know, with the stick.
waving the baton.
So I write all this music, and this was for a stage play I wrote with Klaus Badalt, who was the guy who did the music on Pirates of the Caribbean. But anyway, so you write all this music, and then someone called an orchestrator puts it into a piece of software that makes it sheet music, which looks like this. This is what real musicians can read. Like, I wouldn't call composers musicians. Like, a lot of them are. Like, they can play instruments.
Sure.
But we write the music for real musicians to play. You know what I mean? Most musicians...
You're freaking me out right now, because I get down on myself for not, like, writing anything down on sheet music. My notes, if I write down anything for songs I make, are, like, C#.
Yeah,
That's like it.
Well, you see, that's the thing. So like, there's notes on these, you know, like dynamic marking. So things like get louder, you know, like
Right.
On here that's written as MP, and then there'll be a bracket that goes up to F, which means fortissimo, which means
Crescendo.
very well done. But anyway, so they put it in, they print this out, and then they give it to the, you know, they give individual pieces. So like you can see here, there's like trumpet. This one line here, the whole way through is just the trumpet.
I used to play trumpet.
So, for example, just the trumpet. And so the trumpet player will only have those parts in front of him, and it will be like one sheet of paper. They don't have the entire thing. Like
Right.
this. But the conductor needs to make sure that every single person is on their mark. You know, every single person's doing it right. And so they need everything. So they need to print this massive piece of music that they can extend and then play. And then usually they break it up in recording. Like there's red marks here. So you would never record it in one go because there's too many notes to fuck up.
Yeah.
But like eventually you get through it. But yeah, this is sheet music. So this is usually how it looks just before it's been recorded, and that's what they record to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to play bells in a church choir
Right.
as a little kid, and we'd have these.
Of course
and
you
it
did.
was cool, and you'd pick them up with like little gloves on.
Yeah.
But then
My mom used to do that.
if I got lost, yeah, it was trouble. I'd be like, oh,
yeah.
shit, where
Oh,
the
yeah.
hell are we? I guess I'll just ring one now. Like it's pretty nerve wracking.
Bold.
and I mean, like, this is the interesting thing, because like if you write music, this is actually an almost archaic way of looking at music now, because we
Yeah.
use MIDI. I'm sure you've
Sure,
used MIDI
yeah,
before,
yeah.
which looks more like a grid with dots in it, which I don't have a representation. Maybe if you're editing this, you can just put a picture of MIDI just
Nah.
on the screen. Nah,
Imagine it.
It
imagine.
looks like a bunch of lines with some rectangles
With
on
some
it.
rectangles, and it's easier to read, I think, than this, because this puts a lot of like new people off. Like they think, oh, I'm never going to be able to read this. I mean, like I say, I can read it, but I can't sight read it like a
I
player.
mean, I took piano lessons for 7 years as a kid. They fired me.
They fired you.
They
From
fired
your own
me.
lessons?
How'd you get
From
fired
my
from
own
piano lessons?
Well, because I have a problem with authority, and when people are telling me to practice, I don't do it. But if I get to do it on my own recognizance, then I love it, you know. And I played trumpet in high school, so because of that, and I'm a tenor, so like I usually deal in the treble clef,
Right.
And so I always forget the bass clef. I
Right.
can't remember the notes in the bass clef.
Do you know this one?
Huh?
Do you know this clef?
Oh,
Viola
what?
clef is a different
Oh
one.
yeah, the viola
get their own
clef.
clef. They get
their own clef, yeah.
Is it like an alto?
There is a
alto
reason
thing?
for
Is
it.
like
I
in the
forget.
middle or something?
But yeah, it's basically because it's in the middle. But it's there is probably a better reason that. But my knowledge on these things is
Viola's
actually kind
mad
of
freaky.
shit.
Anyway,
Sorry.
I just thought that was really cool that you brought that.
But no, I brought this
I
as a
keep
gift
thinking
for
that
Ian.
says Xehanort. It has some Z.
It says
or X-
Zillenhort. I think that's a
Zillenhort.
place.
And that is the final level of
a
Scientology,
place-
actually.
Oh,
yeah.
This was
Wait,
a
is it?
Mongolian stage play.
I know that you know about all these weird things, so I take you at your word sometimes. But thank you for bringing that.
Lots
That's
of
so
fun, man.
awesome. But anyway, and we'll get into these treats in a minute.
Oh, yeah, we got all
have
kinds
other
of show and
props.
tell.
We got props for days. But I asked the patrons on Easy Allies, patreon.com/Easy Allies, that are in the $7 and up tiers. That's the film club. I asked them a bunch of questions, so we can use that as the structure for the episode.
Yeah.
The first one was pretty simple. It was just, what's your favorite film score? If you guys have one immediately locked and loaded, you can tell me. Otherwise, I,
got
can read
notes.
through.
I'm good.
What?
I've got notes.
Okay.
I'm locked and loaded.
I got a favorite one.
Well,
Yeah.
tell me
you
then.
can
We'll
absolutely go
we can
first.
start with you guys.
I'm good because I'm not going to forget mine. You go first. Absolutely.
All right. Well, mine just happens to be on top.
Oh.
I wish I could pronounce this. This is the Goblin score for an Italian movie called Deep Red. Is the
Profondo
American
Rosso.
English title.
Profondo Rosso.
Goblin did the score for Suspiria.
Yeah, they
they
did.
worked with Dario Argento. They worked with George Romero on Dawn of the Dead.
I didn't know that.
But this is my favorite of their scores. It's very kind of like bass heavy. It's like Primus on Quaaludes. I don't like Primus, but slow them down, and it turns out I do enjoy them. There's a lot of synthesizers in there.
There's a word for that, isn't it? Where you just take music and slow it way down. They did. Jarmusch did that to the opening number, "Funnel of Love" on "Only Lovers Left Alive." It's like a 45 album played at 35, and it sounds really cool.
It's a great movie.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
But anyway, sorry.
David Lynch does that shit too a lot with his compositions.
So this is super bass heavy?
Yeah, it is. And then
How is it on vinyl?
One of the cool, it's great. I
Does
love it on vinyl.
Not have a good low end?
You normally have to be really careful with vinyl and low end. Like, have you tried listening to a digital version too?
Yeah, I actually listened to it
do a
digitally
comparison?
first. Yeah. I'm not super great when it comes to the technical end of sound. And
If
vinyl
you didn't
to me
notice, it doesn't
tends
matter,
to sound a little bit warmer, and the bass, at least on my stereo setup, is a little bit heavier on vinyl. So that's what it sounds like to me.
Nice.
One thing that's crazy about the Deep Red score, though, is I listened to it before I watched the movie, and I fell in love with the soundtrack before I watched the movie.
Someone else talked about that too.
And I started writing a novel while I was listening to this soundtrack. And in the novel, it just came to me this image of like a salamander on fire. And I was like, I guess I'm going to write that in the book. This is what this song feels like. I ended up seeing the
swear to
movie
God,
later.
that's in the movie.
I ended up seeing the movie like 5 years later. There's salamander graffiti on this wall, and then the whole house burns down. And I was like, how did the music transmit that image to my brain? It's probably a coincidence, but what a cool coincidence.
That's a very specific
But
coincidence.
like,
I was gonna say,
can
that's-
you imagine a music evoking that concrete
that
of an
specific
image?
of an image? Goblin could do it, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. You haven't seen
haven't seen
Suspiria?
it.
You'll love it.
We could try to
I'm into it.
simulate. We could try to simulate the soundtrack to Suspiria. It's like bells going like bling 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 bling, and then just like someone just going. And
There's
then,
a lot
like,
of witchy
eventually-
gasping.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
eventually like someone just like screaming. It's awesome. That makes.
I
that
would compare
movie
it to the
so good.
Castlevania soundtracks for the video game players.
yeah.
They sound very Castlevania-esque,
Yeah,
especially
if
like they're
you-
around the Super Nintendo era. A lot of those
Yeah.
Japanese composers were influenced by Italian horror movies, so you'll hear a lot of them straight up ripping off themes from them.
They do in Suspiria. There's a really cool kind of subjective use of the soundtrack in the beginning when the character is walking out the doors of the airport. The music is really muted whenever the doors are shut, and then gets super loud whenever the doors are open, and it's like storming outside, and then they get shut and it gets
That's an
quiet.
awesome
again. I
trick,
love
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Anyway, did you have your favorite
My favorite
film score of all time?
My favorite one's a weird one. It's Tony Scott. Yeah, Tony Scott's Man on Fire. Do you know that one?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So the only reason for that one, it was weird because so the whole reason I'm a composer is because of Metal Gear Solid 2. Like I saw the trailer when I was a kid and it was big and epic, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do that. So I became like the biggest Harry.
Through.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to be a tornado chaser.
Well, the funny thing is, I
Twister.
when I started, I wanted to be. I just wanted to work on Metal Gear. I actually started off trying to make games, but then I realized I'm shit at maths. So I was like, oh, I'll just
Same
try music
core.
instead. And then,
Music is math.
I mean, well, it's
There's
but
some
like fun
similarities.
math.
It's
Yeah.
as much math as like I could throw this can in that bin, and there's a load of physics behind it, but I don't
Sure,
understand
sure.
the physics.
It's like
as how to-
feelings math.
Yeah, I understand how to get it to work. But anyway, so I was on this huge Harry Gregson Williams trip, and at the time I couldn't write any music, and I saw Man on Fire, and again I'm on this HGW train. And it's mostly like synthesizers and sound design and just weird sounds that I'd never heard before, mixed with like a little bit of orchestra. And I was like, oh shit, you could do that. Because when you write music these days, you need to spend a lot of money on things called sample libraries, which is like fake orchestra, right? And this film didn't have that much of it in. And I'm like, oh, but I've got a DAW and I've got a microphone. I could make I can make most of those sounds. So I actually learned how to recreate like those weird, cool sound designs and synth bass things. And that term now is called like hybrid music. That's like hybrid elements. So like that was, I started trying to imitate that kind of vibe. And then people started hiring me to do it for their scores because I got good at doing it. And that's actually how I ended up like getting into the industry, because I learned to do these kind of Harry Gregson Williams-esque like synthesizers and sound
That's
design
very
and
cool.
stuff. And
I
yeah,
just noticed that your jacket is Diamond Dogs.
Diamond
also.
Dogs. Yeah. It's my
I
Metal
just
Gear.
noticed that.
It's my Metal Gear. I'm a big Metal Gear fan.
Yeah.
Like absurdly so. But yeah, that soundtrack made me a musical sound designer. And musical sound design was the whole reason I got to work on Mass Effect 3, which was my first thing because of the sound design thing.
Oh, sure,
It just
yeah.
timed up really well with like I was getting good at doing the sound design thing, and then Mass Effect, which is really synthy and like they needed some extra
Spacey.
stuff, and You know, but yeah, that was the main reason. I think I wrote another one down actually as well. Gladiator, big melodies.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I wrote.
Yeah.
Big melodies.
Alexander Zirianov says, I rarely feel emotional while watching movies, but lighting the beacons from Lord of the Rings, Return of the King makes me cry. Exceptional score, probably their favorite. Lady of the Lilies, which may or may not be my sister. Favorite score, Jurassic Park. Also love the score for Castaway because when our hero's on the island, there is not music. It is only when leaving the island that the music returns. This has such a powerful impact on the different stages of the movie and helps me as a viewer understand the character's feelings when leaving the island. Yeah, I love stuff like that.
Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't realize that.
There's a really good point in there about score, in that I find it's more impactful when it's saved for a few places. A lot of times when I work in TV shows, my bosses will want like wall-to-wall music over everything, not even a moment of silence. And then it becomes like a little draining for the viewer, and the music starts to lose its impact. But if you have like a director with some restraint, kind of using it at special moments rather than across the board, really heightens its impact.
I talk about it like a muscle. Like if you go for a sprint, immediately after that sprint, you're going to want to slow down and cool down. That's like how music needs to be. You know what I mean? Like if you just keep sprinting, you're going to run out of energy. You know what I mean? You'll get tired, you'll get bored. It's all monotonous. But if you sprint, slow down, calm, and then build back up to another sprint, the sprints feel more organic. You know what I mean? If you go from a standing start and if you kept sprinting the whole way, like you'll run, you're going to be knackered by the time you get home.
I think that takes confidence probably as a creator to not overload the audience and trust that what you're doing is interesting enough. Do you find that when you're writing compositions themselves that as you've done it longer, you don't have to go overboard as much? Or
Yeah, I think the key is figuring out that you're just there primarily for most of the music to give either context or perspective. So it's like there's two people on screen. Context is playing like a dark note to know that it's dangerous, you know, like or playing like a love thing to let them know. And it, you know, you can do that without changing the scene, and you can, you know, play anything. I forget what the other thing was, but but you could do stuff like that. Really simple, yeah.
Yeah, I think that restraint is really interesting. And like an example of I mean, later we have a question about like songs trying to tell you how to feel, you know, which is such a tough thing to do. But yeah, like some of the most profound moments in film is when the soundtrack just cuts out like that. Like
Gravity did that a lot.
Gravity did that a lot. That shot in The Last Jedi where the ship goes through the other ships and it just
that was a cool choice.
It's awesome. Yeah. Mikey Novak says my three non-standard picks for favorite soundtrack is Master and Commander for heavy period correct influence that caused me to fall in love with chamber music. Treasure Planet for its genius blend of 70-30 Victorian and modern music that helped to wonderfully sell the tone of being in the past and the future at once. And lastly, October Sky, my favorite blend of licensed period-correct music and haunting original compositions, and The Red Violin for favorite movie about music itself, Through the Life of Red Violin. Have you guys seen that movie?
I haven't, no.
Have you seen Red Violin?
I didn't. I'm not a fan, but I love their enthusiasm.
You did?
I did.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not, and I didn't like it, but I like that they like it.
I remember liking it at the time, but I mean, I haven't seen it since I was like
I think
9.
I worked at a movie theater while it was playing there.
That's why I don't like Juno.
Oh, yeah.
Because like we had 2000. What the hell
Juno
year
is why
was
I
that?
don't like Juno.
Well, yeah, there's that. it does enough work on its own. But what year was that? 2007? Yeah, I was working at the Landmark in Chicago, and we had There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men, and Juno all at the same time for like months, and they sold out like every showing. It was crazy.
That's 2 out of 3 amazing movies.
I know, yeah.
Did you both work at a cinema?
Probably at different points.
Yeah.
Not together. Yeah.
I did too.
Separate.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really? I did throughout high school and then throughout parts of college and then after college. Yeah.
I was, mine was straight out after college. Yeah, while I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do with life.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Same.
yeah,
I'm still doing that.
There was.
What are you talking about? You're working on shows, you're making books, you're doing...
Yeah, but you always feel the same.
That's true.
Life feels the same.
That's
They
true.
were
You're kind
playing
of
Kingdom of
yourself
Heaven
always.
when I was there. Kingdom of
Oh,
what
I
would that
remember
be?
that movie,
2000,
yeah.
what, 4?
That sounds about right.
Harry Gregson Williams film again.
Ah.
Yeah, like that was one thing I always used to do is that. Sorry, Odeon, if you're watching, why they would, but I used to so if you're on floor duty, you'd sweep up the popcorn and stuff after, and there's like those stages in between showings where there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
I'd just go sit in a movie, I'd just go sit down and just listen to the, because they have this little like special chair for the people that clean up to like wait after.
That's nice.
So like I would always just go sit, but it's like one of the ones where the screen's up like that, right above you. But
We
I
didn't get chairs. We just sat on the floor.
just sat on the floor. But yeah, big speakers playing Harry Gregson Williams. I'm in. I'm all in.
I have a horrible confession of something bad I did when I was working at a movie theater. This is
Please?
a long time ago, so I cannot be prosecuted for it.
Oh,
But we'd
Lord.
round up all my friends who worked at the theater with me, and we'd count till the most serious part of whatever movie was playing when some big plot revelation was about to happen,
Oh, boy.
and then we'd all like open the door and count to 3 and yell "boner" really loud. We called them boner calls, and then run away,
Boner
having
calls.
ruined the movie.
Boner
We did
calls
maybe
is something
like
different
once
where
a
I'm from.
shift until this is the most amazing part. I graduated from college, moved out to LA. I went back to visit that theater years later. I didn't recognize anybody who worked there, but I had a boner call happen to me seeing a movie there. So I'm so proud my boner call legacy lived on.
Oh my God.
Very immature,
asinine.
but I dare you to try it and not have the thrill of your life.
Oh yeah.
It's so
It'd be
fun.
very exciting. And
don't have the
boner's
confidence.
just dumb and offensive enough
Yeah.
without being like actually
It's
love
sex positive.
this.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Do it in the older films. Don't
okay
run
to
into like a
have
kids
boners.
film like
No kids
Oh,
film.
yeah, no kids
Absolutely. This was an art house movie.
running
theater.
into a
yeah,
Disney
yeah.
film.
Yeah. The theater I worked at never played any kids movies unless
Right.
it was like from another country.
We used to have kids' days.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it was like, well, kids' mornings, sorry. Like, so everyone would come in with an excuse because kids don't watch movies, so it'd just be a screen full of kids screaming and throwing
Throw
popcorn,
stuff
and then you'd have to go and sweep it all up, sweep it under the chair.
I liked this comment. Selsinoric. How do you say that?
That's a good guess.
Selsinoric says Neil Young,
Sorry.
dead man. Enough said. Other than if you haven't seen it, please make the time. Yeah, love a good dead man call out.
So the Jim Jarmusch movie
Yeah,
also?
yeah.
That's one of his only ones I haven't seen.
Dead
People
Man
told
is
me I would
pretty
like
cool.
it. Yeah,
You
yeah.
would like it. Some people don't like it.
Jim Jarmusch is definitely hit or miss for me, but when he
Yeah.
hits, I like him.
I didn't see The Dead Don't Die. I wanted to. But
yeah,
then
Iggy
everyone
Pop
was like,
as a
it's
zombie.
bad.
I still want to see it.
Yeah, whatever. Silent Consonant said 2 scores I would throw up as my favorite are probably Blade Runner 2049 and Thor Ragnarok. Those may not be 2 of the best scores ever. And then in parentheses, Blade Runner absolutely is. Fight me. But these are 2 scores that left a huge impression on me. Maybe I have a type.
Now they're talking about the new Blade Runner, not the original Blade
Yeah.
Runner, because the Vangelis soundtrack for the original Blade Runner definitely stands out for me.
What do you guys think?
Iconic.
So, like this is like a horrible confession. I never saw the first Blade Runner. Like I would always get like 10 minutes in and fall asleep. It's
Yeah.
a slow burn. Like it
It's
starts
definitely
slow.
a slow movie.
And it was when I was a kid, so I didn't have the attention. But have you both seen both?
Yeah.
How do you feel the score compares? Because I've heard the scores, but I don't have the visual context for the first
I remember
one.
really liking the score while I watched 2049. I can't remember it right now.
Right.
It's
but
kind
I-
of contemporary,
Yeah.
synthy, right?
Yeah.
Like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in that vibe.
Survive. Yeah.
I like the second
remember
Blade
liking
Runner better.
I like
That's a
2049
weird
more
claim,
than... No,
yeah.
I like 2049 better than Blade Runner.
Did
1.
it sound like Blade Runner or someone trying to do the Blade Runner sound?
What I liked about 2049 is that it didn't... Like, I was worried that
Yeah.
they were just going to ape Vangelis before
Right.
I went into it, and, like, they didn't. Like, it felt like an, an update to that
Yeah.
vibe without just stealing it, which I like.
That's always a fear when you change composers. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Particularly if it's like Blade Runner became the cyberpunk
Right,
like sound. You know.
right.
And then when you've got a different composer, I bet that was a tough one.
I just got a new synth.
Yes, you did.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
My
Name it.
God, did
What's
I
the
ever-
name of the new
Yes, you
synth?
did.
I bought a Moog One.
No, I mean like personal name,
Oh, I
proper
don't-
name. Did you name
Yeah,
it
I've never
like
done that.
Jeffrey
I've never
or?
done that. I've never been one to name things.
I'm saying it's a Moog though.
I named
Yeah.
string
Yeah,
instruments.
well, I'm so glad.
not
you-
synths.
What?
I named string instruments, not
Oh,
synths.
funny.
So I have a cello that's called Ballista
Ah.
because I bought it for a film called Ballistic. But string instruments have names.
X versus Sever?
They feel like organic. You know what I mean? I feel like a piano should have a name, or maybe a wooden guitar. But I feel like synths. I don't know. There's something about like. Would you give
Yeah.
your computer a name? Like
No.
That's what I feel.
Here's
It
the
falls
thing.
into that category, even though it's a musical instrument, and I'm not saying it's not.
It is.
No, it's 100% a musical instrument. Don't get me wrong.
It's the best synth on the planet Earth.
But does it get a name?
Pull it out. What?
I'm dared to pull this out. Well, we're talking about Moog synthesizers.
Yeah.
And I feel like what better opportunity to talk about Wendy Carlos, one of the best film
Yeah.
composers ever in film history. She oversaw the development of the Moog synthesizer.
Really?
So she was responsible for a gigantic portion of the music in the second half of the 20th
did
century.
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, did Clockwork Orange. She did The Shining. She did all these covers of, I think, Bach and like
Yeah.
classical music, but did
Beethoven?
them with synthesizers.
Beethoven's in this one, I think.
Yeah, Beethoven's in this one. She has like switched on Bach. Was kind of like how she
I
started.
thought
A
you
lot
meant
of
in
like
the
cover
movies.
albums.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just she makes Clockwork Orange. Like that's
Yeah,
almost the point
yeah.
of the movie to
Yeah.
me is the soundtrack that
It's-
she does.
That's
Yeah.
most movies, though. I mean, like,
She's a
That
pioneer.
Says
point.
the composer.
Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, like, the point.
not
of
wrong.
The
You're
point
not
of a
wrong.
good score is to make. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's to transcend being music. It's to become part of the greater whole. Like, I'm sure you've seen the videos of like the Star Wars wedding scene or whatever, the ending scene. You know,
Yeah.
when they're just walking through the crowd of people to get their medals or whatever. Someone's just done it with taking the music out.
Oh, yeah,
and it's
it's
just
like-
the sound. It's the most awkward thing
People
ever.
like coughing and stuff.
But you know, like a good score makes a film. You know, it can make a bad film. What's the phrase? Like a good score can make a bad film good or tolerable.
yeah.
But a bad score can ruin a good film.
Yeah.
You know, so
Absolutely.
score. Yeah, it's tricky. Sorry, I'm a composer. It's the only thing I know anything about. So,
When I
so
come
like
to-
it's in my world. You know.
Yeah, when I come to movies, I am way more interested in mood and atmosphere
Yeah.
than almost anything else. Like
Yeah.
a movie could have a terrible plot, but if it feels good and I enjoy the vibe, which music is easily half,
Yeah.
if not
Yeah.
more of.
Yeah, it's
Huge
just
part.
I've
context music.
experienced
Yeah.
movies very much on a music level.
Do you watch the show Legion?
No, I've never seen it, but I've had friends tell
about?
me I would like it.
It's real good. I love it. It's a it's Marvel adjacent, owned by FX, so I guess it was they were allowed to say mutant, whatever. X-Men adjacent, whatever, but it doesn't really matter. Set in the 70s by and large, and is about the character Legion, who has multiple personality disorder, and every personality has a power. Basically, that's the easy way of explaining it. But the show is basically just a tone poem, and each season has like kind of different vibes.
All right.
And like season 1, and season 2. Sometimes, like, 3 episodes will go by and no plot will happen at all.
Yeah.
But, like, it's all just about the mood, and music is a huge part of that. And they also do a thing where, like, Dan Stevens is the main guy. He plays Legion, you know. What's his name from Downton Abbey? Matthew? William? Whatever.
Both good English names.
Yeah. It's a very English name. But they even have him, like, sing some, like, covers of, like, cool songs. Oh, man. The show is so good. Anyway. Oh, yeah, the reason I brought up my extravagant synth purchase is because it came with, like, 4 different settings that were like, hey, you want to do Blade Runner?
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just
There's
like,
a Blade Runner setting.
yeah, they don't call it that, but they call it, like, I think one's called, like, I Am a Golden God or whatever, but it sounds like you're in the Tyrell Corporation, and if you do the pitch bend or the mod wheel, it, like, sounds like Vangelis just going,
Yeah.
like,
Man, when you write music, I said this earlier, but like you buy things called sample libraries and stuff. There's entire libraries
Oh, I
dedicated to
bet.
just the Blade Runner sound.
I bet.
Just that sound. Very rarely does that happen. You get like a movie set, you know.
I'm going to go real quick through the rest of the favorites of people.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because I'm having a blast, but I want to make sure we get some of these in here. Morgan Mahala wanted to shout out Requiem for a Dream, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Dunkirk, and Everything by John Williams. Darren Mifsud, favorite score is easily Conan the Barbarian by Basil Polidorus. High Fantasy Comes Alive. Shout out to Howard Shore, Hans Zimmer, and obviously John motherfucking Williams. Tokyo Slim, favorite film scores, Elmer Bernstein, The Magnificent Seven. That theme just encapsulates adventure better than, or nothing encapsulates adventure better than that. I'm shortening as we go. Katie Garza, Harry Potter franchise shout out.
Okay, good film.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then I said,
I couldn't contain yourself. Fuck yeah, Harry Potter.
That one came up like a burp. It's like, fuck it.
Genuine love.
and then next I asked like a trap question. I said, what do the best scores have in common? Do you guys have any thoughts on that before we hear what I pulled 3 for this.
So I wrote 2 things down. So firstly, a hook.
Yeah.
So any good score is one that you remember. Usually. I mean, like, there are scores where texturally you get through it. But even then, it has a hook, whether it be a textural hook. And a textural hook is, when I say a hook, I mean like a thing that you catch on and you hear it and you go, oh, that's from blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So a good example of like a textural hook from like The Dark Knight would be the Joker thing. You know, like that's just a, whatever it is.
I have a question about hooks.
Sure.
Because I work on music shows all the time, and a lot of times they're like young hip hop musicians who are just starting out, and they don't know how to make hooks. And because I'm not someone who writes music myself, I know a hook when I hear it. I know that's not a good hook or that's a good hook. Are hooks hard to do? Because it seems like a lot of pop musicians who may not necessarily be good on the radio are actually good at writing the hook part. When you're trying to create a hook, what makes it a hook? Is it just that it's catchy, or
So there's lots of different ways you can go about. I actually did one and it's like a live stream. I always mess about with my chat with this one, but like on Metal, I did the main theme for Metal Gear Online, and so one of the hooks I tried to do is I had the percussion saying like Metal Gear Online over and over again, like dun 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 dun. Metal Gear Online. So like I was subconsciously putting like this hook, and if you listen to the melody and you listen to the whole track, it's just made up from like a wall of dun 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 dun. So the main melody is da 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 da. And even though like you may not know that, because there's that consistency, particularly within the rhythm. And the repetition, so da 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 da, like that first bit's the exact same, but because of the familiarity, you remember it, and because it has a change, it's saying da 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 da. It's saying something different, so you remember it almost like how you would remember a sentence. Like so you remember it like a conversation. Like it goes into that part of your brain, and it locks down because you remember it as a phrase. So like the making it say Metal Gear Online thing may not have made them remember it any better, but it definitely, like when you say the name Metal Gear Online, if you happen to say it around the time the rhythm's playing, you're like, oh, this is the thing from Metal Gear Online. Oh, like the rhythm sounds of it. But like you subconsciously bring these things in, and there's other ways of doing hooks.
That's brilliant advice. I hope anyone who's listening to this who wants to make music listens to that.
Yeah, you can just change the way you think about it. A hook can be anything. You could just literally sit there and just try and come up with one. But you like the most fun way when you're writing music is to try and tie it intrinsically to what you're doing in a secret way that when you come on talk shows, you can talk about. Because
here's a fun
no
fact.
one ever notices them, but like they're there for like they serve a purpose, and it's all like subliminal messaging. You know what I mean? Like there's a thing in when you write music called motifs, where you write like very small little phrases that like Gladiator, da 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 da. That's like a motif, and they play that like deep down in the bass, like, and it sounds evil, but it means that it means the family theme, and then they play it again. And so whenever Maximus is having his moment, and it's like about the family, you bring in that motif, and that's a hook because like it's.
And the bad guys, like I've seen some stuff like
Darth Vader,
tracks, where they invert the hero theme, they like invert the chord structure, so
although
it's like backwards.
Things like that you should be careful with, because like some of the nerds will get like too into it. Like so if let's say you have a mysterious evil bad guy and you flip the main character's main theme, someone's going to look at it and go, it's a flip. He's related. He's related somehow. Like so you can't give away the ghost. So like if. Yeah, a lot of the job of a composer is trying to figure out how much information to let on at any given moment. Because like you say, if you played that Joker string line, like the intent of it, I think Hans said in an interview himself, is like if you play that string line, even if the Joker's not in the scene, he's coming. He's there. He's around.
His influence.
And that's a hook. Like that's, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things, like you can hear the Dark Knight soundtrack, hear just that sound, and you know what it's from, and that's a hook. It's just, it doesn't have to be a melody or anything. It just has to be something that you can remember.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you were talking about Cardi B earlier, and like I remember a quote that people said about her is like, she hit #1 on the charts without a melodic hook.
Right.
And like everyone was like pounding on that, and it was like such
she knows
a cool
how to choose
thing.
beats very well.
She has like lyrical hooks and beat hooks all over that song, right?
There was a big rhythmical hook recently.
Right.
The what is it? The Scotch snap. The da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
That's
the triplets.
That's called a. I actually watched a video on it the other day. That's called a Scotch snap. It's like from like Scotch music. Da 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 da.
Oh, funny.
Da 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 da. Like when they do like their folksy sing at the beginning of a phrase, they go da da, and so that da da, like it's like a triplet. It's like da 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 da, and then you put it over da 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 da. Got it, what it, it's a very hip hop thing. Yeah. Clearly, me doing it doesn't sell it as well, as it can be.
About the like hip hop. I think they called it the hip hop triplet or something. The Migos or somebody like popularized it. Yeah.
But
was cool.
that's a hook as well. Like, I mean, it's overused now, but at the time, that was you know what I mean? Like, you could hear that and be like, oh, that's from that particular thing.
It's so funny, little like melodic and rhythmic stuff like that suddenly becomes in vogue.
Right.
Like, I mean, in the more back to like more cinematic and video game soundtrack stuff. Like after Inception, it was just the
Oh my God, yeah,
like,
yeah.
ad nauseum. And it was
You'd
just
hear
like,
it walking
oh,
down a
man.
movie theater coming from
Yeah,
all the
and it's like,
different
oh,
auditoriums,
God.
just like
8 different
all the trailers,
and
making the
now
bass shake.
The new boing is cutting to bullets.
Oh,
And
okay,
that,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yep, yep.
And that too.
Bum,
For
bum,
video
bum.
games, it's like and like superhero movies,
Yeah,
like
down.
everyone loves cutting to assault rifles, right?
Down, down,
Yeah.
boom, down, ba, 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 ba. Yeah.
Everybody loves that. And then the little pin drop.
The pin drop is
that one's been around forever. I
that
feel like.
one's always been there, but like now we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, the piano's slightly different. Like,
right.
like that idea is done now. Like you could probably do it. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of those ideas get saturated in like trailer music.
Yeah.
You know, so like you have a big movie moment and then that becomes like a trailer thing. Trailers actually at the minute are doing the you know, the orchestral cover thing. Everybody wants to
the
roll
sad,
up.
sad cover. Yeah.
It's usually like an EA or a Ubisoft trailer will do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, games love that. The only one, the ones that do it the
Yeah.
best are like the Evil Within 2 and that kind of stuff.
The one that got me that was like it's music that I would never listen to by choice, but like I was like that's cool. Was the Resident Evil 7 trailer? You know, go tell
Go Tell Aunt Rhody.
Like that one was weird, but like it was weird in a way that I was like what I'm seeing is perfect.
You can do some clever kind of counter programming if you catch somebody with something unexpected like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tokyo Slim says that they
Tokyo
think
Slim.
the best. Yeah, good guy.
I like that.
They think the best scores help to define and shape the cinematic world. They're a type of emotional shorthand that is used to indicate what characters or you as the viewer are supposed to be feeling,
Yep.
sometimes subtly or many times overtly. Helen Y. said that the best scores have a recognizable theme that's woven throughout the entire soundtrack. That's like what you were saying. I'm always impressed with how many variations of concerning hobbits there are in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
Michelle Jackson said something. This is kind of what I was trying to catch people with, because I agree and I disagree. I think the best film scores not only work within the context of the media it's paired with, but on its own. Good scores can be enjoyed at any time simply as good music. Of course, the real answer, the best soundtracks all just have horns in them.
Of course.
That's the real answer.
I disagree with that point.
I
think.
disagree. I agree and I disagree, because it's like I think a really great song from a movie that you can listen to on its own is awesome. Like you can throw on some songs from like the Sherlock Holmes movies and they're really fun to listen to, and then the rest is not as fun to listen to. But I think like Sicario is the biggest example of this ever. Like a lot of times when I'm jazzed on a movie, I'll put the soundtrack on the drive home, right? And like the soundtrack to Sicario in the movie felt like this like in your face, like crazy ass, like bombastic thing. And then you listen to it by itself and it's like almost ambient.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, like really without the context, it's really still really awesome music, but the meaning of it is completely different. And I thought that was really interesting. So,
I think I'd much rather sell what's going on screen than worry about like people listening to it later, because like I say, composing is an interesting one because we're like outside the field, you know, we're outside of the industry, but we're in it. And I feel like you get a tendency to value your music over the project sometimes, you know, like I'm the composer here. I decide what the music does. But I feel like if you can make the film the best film it can be, even if the music doesn't work by itself, people will still listen to it with like a love and affection. Again, I keep going back to it because it's the best example I've got, but like the Dark Knight Joker thing, I can hear that. And like sometimes you're listening to it for like 2 minutes straight, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I understand, I've got the movie, I've got the context for it. And that's usually what good music is. Like everybody always says what's, you know, like there's good and bad music objectively, but there's music which I thought was absolutely shockingly terrible. And then I see it in the movie and it's complete, it flips around, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, now I understand why it sounds like that.
Right.
And now when I'm listening to this music, I have context for it. It's like the scene from Back to the Future, you know, when he plays the guitar and they're not ready for it. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like that. They don't have the context for it yet. And that happens with film score. Like, you know, you need the context in order to understand.
Yeah. Did you have something you wanted to say?
You know, I like a huge variety of film scores. Sometimes even film scores that aren't matched to movies I'd have any interest in seeing. And to me, like, variation and instrumentation is a lot more important to me than one particular overlying theme. Like, I listen to a lot of Italian film scores. And there's this new, like, whatever, like, obnoxious hipster thing that I'm a part of, where you listen to Italian film score library music from, like, the 60s, a lot of times used for, like, dirty movies, like softcore erotica, or for like public broadcasting documentary specials
Like that.
But
Public broadcasting, porn.
But it's some of the
You are an
most
amazing human
fascinating music you'll ever hear in your life. I recommend just like take a
Are you about to
stroll.
bring out a
yeah,
PBS porno documentary
Exactly.
right now?
Yes,
yes,
here we
he
go.
is. Yeah, yeah.
Here we go. So the
Oh, he
Italian Library of Sound
Oh, shit,
Grooves.
actually is.
There's like a collection of different softcore pornography film composers. And it's the most amazing music I've ever heard
Erotic
in my life.
variations and bossa moves.
There's a lot of strings. It's like kind of grew out of the spaghetti western thing and then developed into its own peculiar niche. They've got crazy synths and organs and like all kinds of experimental noises that sound like very avant-garde even today, but it has
Dang.
amazing melodies too. And I have no interest in watching most softcore
yeah.
Italian pornography.
Sure.
I read it for the articles.
It's
is
okay,
what I'm
it's
saying.
All right, it's all right.
But yeah, like what you're saying is it's more like how you say something more than what you say. I say that a lot when I'm talking to particularly like newer composers. Like you have to put almost more stock in how you say something than what you say, because like movies are subjective. So like you can say I love you. What is it? There's a meme like if you write in a nice loving font, you will always be mine. You know, like a love heart after it. It's a cute thing. If you write it in blood, it means something very different.
something very different.
But the same as if you whisper I love you to a woman, and if like you're screaming it like manically while you're chasing them with a knife, it means something different. And so like music isn't. I'd say it's like almost sometimes like 10% the notes you're playing and 90% how you're playing them. You know what I mean? Like particularly like when it comes to action or emotion, because a lot of emotion is just ding. You know, like just feel it because you're feeling the space, and what you're supposed to be feeling there is you're waiting for the next note. So you have a sense of longing. You're waiting for that next note. So you're somewhat feeling what that character's feeling because your body's waiting for a release from the musical note. So you play like a chord that's got tension in it. And so the person is physically feeling the tension of that note, and they're like, I want this to resolve. And you can tie that to the images so that the people are feeling exactly how this person's, feeling in this moment by, musically spreading it out or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's part of why this show is called Reaction Shots. It's because like when I was in acting school back in the day,
I didn't know you were in acting school.
I got kicked out of acting school, man.
And piano lessons.
Yeah. Well,
I bet they regret their decisions now.
starting little rebellions everywhere.
Well, yeah, I started in the theater school at DePaul in college. It was a conservatory program, and when I was there, they took 50, and then after first year, cut it to 36, and after second year, cut it to 24, and I got cut the second year, which was awesome because I was not really having a great time, and they kept telling me I was too much of a filmic actor, and I was like, well, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Isn't that what you want to do?
Did they want like the
theater or something?
Yeah, theater. Yeah. And so then I just immediately went to the film department and had a way better time. So I feel like I learned everything I needed. And then, but one of the things an acting teacher said was the moment before and after is the most important part of like moments and of scenes. And like a person saying something is important, but then how the person hears it and how like you react after something incendiary happens or whatever is like the interesting part, because like human face, you're like looking for that meaning in it, and it's sort of similar to what you're saying.
So you're
It's
just
like,
looking intently in my eyes doing this.
like you could just do like bling, and like that could mean so much in the context of anyway.
Well, I mean that's what a composer's job is. We are context and perspective. That's what we do. Our job is to give context to the scene and the perspective of which character we're seeing it through. So like you have a motif, like the best way to like you've got Darth Vader in the scene with Luke Skywalker. You can tell whose perspective it is based on which theme is playing. So if it's playing like because it's interesting, like if you play the Darth Vader theme but you play it in like a heroic way, you're going to start feeling that like, okay, this is Darth Vader but he's becoming a hero. You know what I mean? Even if nothing changes in the scene, it implies things,
Thought I felt an earthquake. Did they do that in the prequel trilogies? I'm trying to remember if they like inverted the Imperial March to make it like major.
I don't think they did. No.
Not a lot of,
You're going to get a lot of comments about that.
You probably did.
Let me know.
I watched those when I was a kid, and I don't think I watched them since. The prequel
really?
series, yeah.
I watched them when I was, after I was too old to appreciate them. Well, I mean, I saw them all in theaters.
We didn't see I didn't see Star Wars till I actually came out to LA. So this was like 5
really?
years ago. Because I never saw the first three. My parents didn't watch them, and I was before my time. Saw the three prequel ones as a kid. Weren't for me, but not the best intro
weren't
from
for
what I
most
hear
people.
to Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I came to them eventually. They're great. They're good.
Yeah.
First three, not so much. But
Let's talk briefly about licensed music and how.
what was that sound?
I mean, you're a composer. How do you feel about licensed music and something you're working on? Do you think it bolsters the overall soundtrack, or
It depends what it is. I mean,
is it a crutch?
it depends wholly on what the music is. Like, I feel like licensed music should only be there if there's a reason for it. Like, if let's say that like a character has an emotional trauma during, I don't know, like some rock song. If you play that rock song later in the film, you're going to tie it to a moment.
Right.
But the other thing, it can also be like what's the like a shorthand. Like you know what most of Ed Sheeran songs are about. So if you play an Ed Sheeran song, you know how you're supposed to feel. You know what I mean? It's like it's a good way of getting there, but it's also, and when it comes to movies, there's also like marketing angles tied into it as well. You know what I mean? If we have like a hit single,
right.
I mean, it used to be like the other way around. Well, not used to be the other way around, but like I like the way they did it. You know, where you had like Bryan Adams and Michael Kamen on Robin Hood.
Right.
You know, and they worked together, or James Horner and Celine Dion on Titanic.
Right.
I like
the
it when
movie would advertise the song.
Yeah, I liked it that way, and I feel like the songs instantly go to number one.
Puff
Like,
Daddy and Godzilla, isn't that?
Rage Against the Machine had a good Godzilla.
They did.
Yeah, it was
Oh, I
very
remember that.
subversive because
I
they were
remember
talking
that.
about how like the interlinking between entertainment and war and the weapons industry, and how Godzilla the film was part of a problem, but it was like the lead song for the soundtrack of the movie.
the
I
true
thought that was cool.
the true Godzilla song is what was it? Deeper Underground, Jamiroquai. Do you remember that? Down,
Whoa.
down,
Yeah.
down. Down, 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 down. That's going back. That's
That's a good group. I
That
really
was like
like
one.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the first like Godzilla movie? The big. It was years. It must have been in the 90s or something. But it
Well,
was like
98 was the Roland Emmerich one.
Was that like the first big one here?
That was the first American one that I'm aware of.
I think
Besides,
that was
if you
Jamiroquai.
don't count the like redo.
That was the dude who wore the big hats.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times licensed music
That's all I know.
can become like a bit of a
licensed
crutch if you're not using it creatively.
Yeah.
Like I really loved the movie Atomic Blonde, but the Charlize
never saw
Theron
that.
spy one,
Yeah.
but I hated the music in it because it was all these 80s hit songs that I like in any other context, but it wasn't using them in any kind of original way. And other movies had used those songs previously in a better way.
better effect.
And I feel like a lot of times if you're using a popular song, you need to recontextualize it and make me look at the song in a different way. Otherwise, what's the point of even dropping it in there?
Yeah,
it kind of feels like
juxtapose
cheating
it on
a little
something
bit.
Well, I mean, a good example is like Baby Driver. Do you remember that
Oh,
one?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
which is where it's like it's playing the intensity of the songs are playing out the scene. I like that.
Baby Driver. Fun fact. They had to license all the music at the scripting phase because
Right.
they needed to know what they were shooting to.
Yeah.
And the editor was on set cutting the scenes as they went. He had his editing rig on a cart. And they would do the takes. He would assemble them quickly to the songs and say, yeah, it fits, or no, we need this again because it doesn't work.
Oh, so to
I
get the
love
timing
that.
in there.
Yeah,
That's
to get the
perfect.
timing.
That's really good.
Because like several of those shots are like one takes, like long takes. And so they had to get it right.
A lot of musicians always wonder, how do I get my song licensed in a movie or a TV show? The editor is the key.
Oh, yeah.
100%. If an editor
Temp
can
music.
make good use of your song,
That's a
they're
whole
going to
field.
sell it to all the executive producers and everyone who can pay you money for it. So if you're out there as a musician trying to get your song in a movie or a show, buddy up with a bunch of editors.
Yeah.
That's your
I'm
key.
gonna take
Yeah.
that advice.
How do you feel about temp music? Like, if an editor throws in,
yeah.
Led Zeppelin or something, well, that'd be a hard one.
Temp music's weird. Like usually, like the point of music in the first place is it's there to say things that you can't otherwise say. And I've never understood why people are so down on temp music, because sometimes a director wants to explain how he wants something to feel.
Right.
And he could either explain it in like a 500-word email, or he could just play me a bit of music that's like, it's something like this. And usually what I do, I would get them to send me lots, like at least like 2 or 3 tracks that they like that work for this scene for them,
Right.
and then try and find the through line. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about all of these 3 tracks that makes it work? Because like I said, the notes a lot of the time don't matter. It's how you're saying something, and usually that's what it comes down to. It's like a textural, or like a how it feels, like that a lot of the time. So then all my job would be is if I have like a theme or something I've already written in the movie. Now I just need to make it sound like this temp thing. And like sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you get, I've literally had the comment, can you make it more Zimmer? Like, or it's not Zimmerish enough.
Right.
These kinds of things you get a lot because a lot of the time there's a popular composer and everybody wants to hire that guy, but that guy is really expensive. So they hire guys who are just, who can do that really well,
Right.
I mean, it's not a fun practice to be hired to be someone else, and a lot of the time you work around it. But what I tend to do is I listen to the tracks that they want, and I get like the general vibe of what they want for the film or the scene, and then I never listen to it again. But I have that general feeling of what it needs to be, and I tend to find that when you find a through line rather than copy a temp, because what a lot of people do is try and just copy the temp.
Right, just do that.
Yeah,
because they think pay for it.
Because a lot of people don't have the confidence yet to say to the director, "Oh no, I don't think that's a good idea," or that's maybe not. Let's do that. So I often find that if you just don't bring that up with them, listen to it, get the gist of what they want, turn it off, and then make your thing that's kind of like it but not it. They tend to love it faster.
I feel like you're giving composer film school here in this
Yeah,
episode. That's brilliant.
I'm enraptured. Yeah,
I have a YouTube channel where I
very
do this, so it's
practical
fine.
He has a
tips,
YouTube
yeah.
channel where he does this.
Where I do this.
Plug it.
Yeah.
What's your YouTube?
What is it? YouTube.com/DazExus. DazExus.
D-A-Z.
Z. You say Z.
In English, that's Z.
In American English.
Z is so much cooler.
D-A-Z.
though.
That is way cooler.
DazExus.
You tricked me into saying aunt earlier when I always say aunt.
Aunt.
Oh, I like
thought-
aunt.
I
like
prefer
aunt.
I say aunt.
Aunt feels
You
very
said aunt
like
before.
Wait, so-
North New Englandish.
I used
well,
to.
in Midwest, a lot of us say aunt too.
I used to live in the north of England where they'd say things like bath and grass, which is kind of like your grass
That's
or bath.
disgusting American, yeah.
When I say it comes out American like a deep southern guy for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, we just say bath.
But my other accent, the one that I have most of the time is like grass and bath.
Grass.
Aunt.
Bath.
Good friend of mine he was Scottish and he would say tacos instead of tacos. It was tacos.
We're going to give your aunt a grass bath.
We're going to give your aunt a
It's like a weird threat.
Give your aunt a taco.
Give your aunt
a taco.
a taco.
All right.
Sorry, that was a side.
derailed
That was like a
everything.
side tangent.
The $1 million question here, and you
Didn't
can say yourself if you want. Who's your favorite composer?
Just one.
Yeah, or
Just name
composers.
one.
Mine are some that came to my mind are Cliff Martinez, Clint Mansell, and Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo. But he does all
that's a great choice.
he does all the he does a lot of the Wes Anderson stuff, and I think they like Ping Island.
His Life
Lightning
Aquatic,
Strike, Life
yeah,
Aquatic, dude. Life of 100%.
Do
So Ping Island Lightning Strike is so good because it starts as like synth, like just little blips, but then when they get onto the island, it goes full orchestral, but the same motif.
It's
so
great.
good.
It really is. I
love
that
that,
piece.
yeah.
So it's just like a rearrangement of the did it.
Yeah, and it's like because the synths are pretty sparse,
Right.
And then they get on the island, and then it has the full orchestra, and like the bass section is like coming in with this other like
Yeah, it's an underrated Wes Anderson movie. It might be
Life
my
Aquatic
favorite.
I love it.
I think it was prime for Wes Anderson backlash, just because the culture does that. If someone's successful enough, it's time to hate them. And Life Aquatic was time to hate Wes Anderson, but it's one of his best movies.
I agree 100%. I think Life Aquatic is among my maybe my favorite of his. Grand Budapest Hotel is really good. The Grand Budapest, whatever, is really good.
It's a very stately movie. That one's cool too.
Yeah, the pink
different
one.
ways. Yeah.
That's how I remember that movie. The Pink.
Wes Anderson does a lot of work on the music in his movies, both with licensed and score. Sometimes he goes a little too heavy with the licensed music, but he also picks some really cool songs. Like I've never thought of that Kinks song that way after seeing Rushmore, and then yeah.
Or Elliott Smith, like the
Oh God,
Neil
yeah.
in the Hay. I'm just like, good.
I can't. Most Elliott Smith I can't listen to,
but,
even though he's
yeah.
one of the best musicians
Yeah,
ever.
very good stuff.
Yeah.
Real quick, back to licensed music. Watch Dogs is bad, right?
So
I
that's
thought
an
it was like
interesting one. Okay.
so insane.
So
the music in that.
like a lot of the backlash to this you'll hear will be from musicians because
or Watchmen, I mean, not Watch Dogs.
Oh,
Watch
totally
Men.
different.
Oh, we're
yeah.
talking about
Sorry,
Watchmen.
Watchmen.
Okay.
Watch
then
Dogs,
then
not the
d-
game.
Then I
Watch
don't-
Men.
Then I don't know what we're talking about.
Watchmen.
I didn't like the movie. What was
Neither
up with
did
it?
I.
And I can't remember much about
Yeah.
the score. So
Sorry,
what was happening with
Watchmen.
it?
Just the music, the licensed music is one of those things where it's just like, look what song we got. I don't know.
Do you
I'm making
remember-
a lot of people mad right now.
Do you remember Pop Culture?
Yeah. Whereas like Guardians of the Galaxy, like it's overt and pretty in your face, but at least it has like story motivation. Like the tapes.
Does they really tied
tied
it in well?
And
Yeah.
like watch men, watch dogs, not watch dogs. Watch men. Is it's just like here's a bunch of songs. I don't know. It's like Suicide Squad. It's just like
what about films like where music is the point, like Whiplash or
Yeah,
Bohemian
dude,
Rhapsody?
yo.
What do you think about those?
didn't see Bohemian Rhapsody because I saw that video about the editing and I was like, wow, this is awful. But it looked to me like the editor didn't have coverage.
I have a friend who I think won an Oscar on that. He was working on. Hi Tim.
Yeah.
Most
Oscars go for most
yeah,
editing.
they won for the best. I think it was sound editing is what they won it for. They work over at Twickenham in London. Yeah, really cool guys. It was just like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, I didn't see
Cool
it.
guys
I don't know. And but yeah, Whiplash, one of the most stressful movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
My wife calls that movie douche drums, which I think is a good name for
Douche
it.
drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very abusive
I'd
relationship.
watch a douche drums too.
Yeah. Didn't like La La Land really.
I was okay with it.
I wasn't like mad at it, but I like didn't love it.
City of Stars.
That's a fun song.
I just like how deep it comes in.
I like Baby Goose. I like his band, Dead Man's Bones. Ryan Gosling. Dead Man's Bones.
I haven't heard it.
Lose Your
What
Soul,
kind of music do they play?
Power. What kind of music is that? I'd say it's like indie goth rock with a children's choir.
Oh, you got me there with that pitch.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah,
Johnny
that's a
Depp
good
in a band
pitch.
as well?
Maybe.
Like the Hollywood Vampires or
maybe.
something like that.
Like
I don't know.
the Ryan Gosling one it's like very like goth. It's like
Very
about
goth.
It's like fun goth though. It's like
Is there any other kind?
That's like an oxymoron. Fun goth.
yeah, it's good stuff.
We just said the opposite thing. I was like, of course, all goth is fun. And
All
you're like,
we were making the same joke, but the other way around.
yeah.
Or were you
I
being
think
serious?
goth is fun.
Oh, right.
I was pseudo goth in high school. Not really.
I didn't
Not
become
really.
goth until I was 35, and I'm loving it.
That's
my new
I
thing.
was in like a goth band in high school.
I thought goth
Oh,
was
name
like
it.
not
I want to know the
caring.
name. What's
You're
your
gonna
goth
love,
band name?
You're gonna love the name of this. Spolia opima.
Oh, what is that? What the hell
It's
does that
Latin
mean?
for rich spoils or the arms taken by the victorious from the vanquished dead.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Sounds
a
like
goth
something.
name.
Sounds like something you
a
need
goth
an
name.
embarrassing cream for.
Yeah. Well, but then after I went to college and stopped taking myself as seriously, we changed the name of that band with all the same members to Dr. Survivor and the At Seas. And then we just had way more fun, and the music got way better. There are a few of the songs from that band that I think are still
Goths
pretty
take
good.
themselves seriously, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most
I
part,
got
yeah.
I got beyond that.
Well, yeah, I always saw the goths I know at least. It was very much like I don't care. Like I don't care about authority. I don't care about fashion. I don't care about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like I don't care. That was kind of what it was. So when you said fun goth, it was like I always thought the goth thing was like a laid back kind of
Yeah.
attitude. You know? So
Yeah,
it wasn't like a
true
go get 'em.
goths,
It wasn't a go get 'em attitude.
Non-performative goths. I was a performative goth, I think. I was like trying
Performative
to
goth.
be
Goth
Trent
is on the
Reznor.
inside,
Yeah.
not on the clothes.
So there's
If you're-
subgenres
if you're
of-
really, if you're really goth, you're just like, yeah, hey.
Well, it's fun goth is like its own category.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. There's like
Health
Apology-
goth. Have you heard that?
Gangster goth.
Health goth.
Beach
That's the new
goth.
thing. Yeah, summer goth.
Sun goth. Apologies to all the goths in the audience.
Beach goth.
What the hell
That's
were we
what we
talking about? Favorite composer?
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Robert Cassidy says, I was going to start writing up my favorite film scores, then I realized they were pretty much all from John Williams, Hans Zimmer, Howard Shore, and Danny Elfman.
There is like 5 top guys. Have you
Yeah.
ever noticed that?
And then Happy Gaming shouts out John
Yeah.
Carpenter, Christoph Beck, Clint Mansell.
John Carpenter makes themes for music or themes for movies that don't exist.
Yeah.
He calls them
Lost
like Lost
Themes.
Themes.
Lost
That's
Themes.
I saw
an
him in
amazing
concert.
album.
It
I
was
saw
dope.
it too. Maybe we're at the same
I
concert.
think we might have been.
He was
He
like
played
a
at the
spry old
Palladium?
70-year-old. Yeah,
Palladium?
100%. It
In
was so
Hollywood?
good.
With
yeah,
his
clips
son.
of his movies. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was at that
that
show.
concert
I
was
didn't see
great.
you. Yeah.
I should have assumed you were there.
Carpenter buddies.
I haven't been.
You can get a high five.
Yeah, high five,
There
high
you go,
five,
just
get
for
in there.
fun.
Just for fun.
No, but I
that
love
was
John Carpenter's. And like, yeah, that
He's in the stack somewhere.
those concerts.
Constellation.
are
John
just
Carpenter's
awesome.
in there.
Yeah, where he is. John's Carpenter's. Oh, here. Here's John Carpenter's.
it's a new
Lost
one, isn't it?
Themes
If
right
you like
here.
The Thing, Escape from New York, all that good shit, he does. I think this is even better than his
I,
original film scores.
Man, the names of these things
Lost
as well.
Themes 1
These are
was
John
better, I
Carpenter.
think,
Vortex,
than 2.
Obsidian, Fallen, Domain, Mystery, Abyss, Wraith,
Right?
yeah,
Purgatory, Night.
he might be a
Wraith.
bit of a fun goth. John
He's
Carpenter,
he's a fun goth.
Wraith.
grandpa fun goth.
He's a grandpa fun goth.
OG fun goth. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Goths always had white faces and black makeup to me. Maybe I've just come from a different time.
This is the
It's a new age.
proto god
yeah.
right here.
Man, I'm always just locked in my studio. I don't have time for like different
For being a
social
fun
structures. Well, I'm not up with my social structures. That's the. I'm not up with goths and
Oh, hey, I know this
whatever
guy.
they're all called.
Oh,
these
It
days.
Follows is a good one because that's Disaster Piece, the video game
Piece.
composer.
Yeah,
and
Rich
then my
Freeland.
friend David Robert Mitchell, shout out to David, directed this movie, and he knew when he was writing the script that he wanted the Fez composer on it.
Yeah.
He was like, this movie's made for him. So
Yeah, he's a fun guy. He never accepted my Facebook friend request though.
Which one, Disaster Piece? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've met him a few times. We hung out at like a party one time.
And then didn't add you? That's even more painful.
Huh?
That's even more painful when you've met
Yeah.
them.
But I loved I haven't seen It Follows because I'm a scaredy cat, but I saw Under the Silver Lake. Have you seen that?
I play the Mario footage in that movie. So you know when
Wait,
he goes,
what?
Topher Grace is
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. You recorded that?
That's footage of me playing Mario going to the -1 world.
Yeah.
I was like, you got to put -1
So wait,
in
you're
this
just
movie.
actually friends with the director of these movies?
Yeah, and he knows I'm a big video game nerd. So he asked me to record the
do.
Mario Brothers footage for the movie, which I was
God
so happy
damn it.
about. Yeah, it was my
Anyway,
big screen
Under
debut.
the Silver Lake rules. I loved that movie.
It's a
And
crazy, weird
Disaster
movie.
Piece did the soundtrack for that again, but it sounds like old Hitchcock
Like a classic
movies.
Hitchcock movie, yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, that movie's great. I loved it. It's
It's
real
bonkers,
weird.
yeah.
I love
Super
how weird
strange.
it was. Oh yeah. Space Dumb says, shout out to Pinar Toprock and Micah Levy for composing the music for Captain Marvel and Under the Skin, respectively. Two very good and wildly different scores from the last 10 years.
Whoa,
yeah,
that's
Under
some
the Skin.
range.
Those are
That's
some
some
random.
yeah.
I think they
But they're
didn't
two
do it
different people,
together.
right?
Yeah, two different people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Michael
was gonna
Levy
like, they
was
were- it was
Under
a
the
duo
Skin, and
doing them,
Pinar
I think.
Toprock, Captain Marvel. Yeah, very different. Under the Skin's music is pretty crazy.
Have you seen this movie? Scarlett Johansson's an alien who
I haven't. No.
eats people, kind of.
You probably wouldn't like it.
It's like art.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way you're selling it to me.
It's artsy Slither.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
Beach
one of
goth.
those- Beach goth. That's one of those movies that I liked it when I watched it, but then I found out like how they made it, and it made me appreciate the movie way more. None of the men,
documentary, right?
yeah,
A
almost
little bit?
none of the men in this
wow.
movie that Scarlett Johansson is seducing and then killing in a really weird way. None of them knew it was a movie at first.
Wait, what were
they
they
just-
expecting Scarlett?
They just thought
come
Scarlett Johansson was like a prostitute or something, and like
Sex
seducing
worker.
them. Yeah,
in?
Sex
familiar.
worker. Yeah, well, they didn't. I think they've shot it in like wherever.
Yeah. Cool, interesting movie.
David Geis, Gies. I have to name drop the late Johan Johansson. May he rest in peace. His work with Denis Villeneuve is among my favorites, especially Sicario and Arrival.
I get teared up during Arrival. That music.
Yeah. Dude, well, and Sicario as well, as I said before. Yeah, like, man. So minimal, but, like, so impactful, too. I love it.
Oh, they're talking about Philip Glass.
Matthew
the
Eden,
next
shouts out Philip
comment.
Glass
Thank you,
for
Matthew
Mishima.
Eden. That's in here somewhere. Philip Glass documentary scores. It's in one
I
of these
love,
records.
yeah,
if we
I
dig
love
far enough.
Philip
Yeah.
Glass. Well, let's find it.
You keep reading his comment. I'll do the
Okay.
digging.
Philip Glass is my favorite film composer. This is from Matthew Eden. And I believe his score for Paul Schrader's Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters is his best work. The film has a very unique visual aesthetic that switches from black and white to a sort of bright pastel color palette that is extremely abrasive throughout the film, but the score matches it, and it's
I
great.
cannot pronounce this. But
Oh, yeah.
It's used in the Truman Show.
Pawakwatsi, I
It's
think?
very if you're down on your life.
Is
It's
that what's his name? What's his name?
the film director.
Yeah, is that the guy who did, like...
It's a series.
all those
of
ones that have words
documentaries.
like that I can't say.
Yeah, about like society
The one
and
that starts with an
technology.
S I really like.
The song is very like inspiring. It cheers me up if I'm having a bad time. It's like when Truman Show Jim Carrey gets on the boat and like tries to break out of his little confines of his reality world. Yeah.
Dude,
It's
in,
awesome thing.
In film school, I made one of my first short films was like an assignment, and I used what is it called? Einstein on the Beach? No. The one where it's talking about a sailboat, the Philip Glass. Was just
Okay,
repeating,
yeah.
And there was wind in the sailboat, and it was very clean, very clean and pure, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, what's that one? That one's weird.
taking-
Oh,
Everybody
this
off
is
of this.
Scanners and The Brood, which I believe is that
Ah.
Howard Shore who
Is it?
did the
Oh, really?
possibly.
Something about me. My knowledge of films
Correct
and who
us
did
in
them
the
is
comments,
terrible.
but they're amazing. Cronenberg's really creepy,
Love
I
but
love
this
this
is
art.
like orchestral creepy.
Yeah.
So it's a cool. He's like kind of a classical film composer, and then hearing his take on creepy shit
Yeah.
is amazing. Maybe he did Videodrome as
Mondo
well.
put that out.
Yeah, Mondo and Death Waltz.
Just as
lots of cool
as a side
film
point,
scores.
most composers, most artists in general are what you call reactive. You know, you react to things. This picture is incredible, incredibly reactive.
You could write some songs about that.
Like my brain does this.
Write
I
a
think most
song-
composers
write
do.
a song to it and then
Well, that's what I'm saying. You see a picture, and
Tweet
your
it out
brain,
and everyone will
your brain
love
fills
it.
in like this song. Like you would know what that sound. It's weird. It's a weird. Like it's hard to explain to people.
What's that
Yeah,
word? It's
yeah.
almost like synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yeah, exactly. So like I see a picture,
image
and I
you hear
hear,
music.
I hear what that sounds like. It's a cool thing, which is why I was trying to cover up the porn. You see.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. So I'm just.
Yeah, I'm hearing lots of
It's
stuff.
put
when I
bars
see it.
over
I'm
that.
getting so distracted over here. He's just dumped like an entire pile of porn in front of
Oh,
me.
here's
Like,
Barbarella. That'll help.
Yeah.
Dang. Come here. Michelle Jackson
Have to
brings
get
up
that
Joe
pixelated.
Hisashi, who I actually saw that concert.
Joe
Oh,
Hisashi.
here we go. I brought some Joe
Ah!
Hisashi. A lot of
Did you
Ghibli
go to that-
movies.
did you go to
I
that
did not. I
concert?
didn't know he was here.
did
So
a
I'm so
concert?
bummed I
No
missed
way,
it.
really? Where?
This is his composition to a manga. It's really cool. This sounds very
He
video
made a
game like.
composition to a manga.
Yeah, this manga got adapted. I believe it's called
okay.
Kisho Tenyo.
That seems
But anyway,
about right, based
if you
on
want to
what
hear,
it says on the spine there.
yeah, if you want to hear more experimental Joe Hisashi
Oh, is that-
from the
I
Ghibli
didn't know he
movies,
ever
yeah.
did. Like, yeah, he
Man,
does
he
a lot
did.
of
He
Ghibli
did.
films.
What was the Nino Kuni? Love that song.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
he worked on the game.
Da-da-da-da-da.
He's like the Hans Zimmer of Japan. He did like 100 film scores at least.
Hans
yeah.
Zimmer of Japan.
Yeah, or
I'd go
Hans
with
Zimmer is the Joe Hisashi.
I'd go more with
of-
the John Williams. Like he's definitely more like orchestral.
Yeah.
Like Hans, I'd say is like more your hybrid guy.
I just meant in terms of like his popularity or
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah.
renown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Comparisons, yeah. In my world, is like who they sound like.
Keanu La'a brought up Star Wars and John Williams, but specifically that a lot of the feel of John Williams' music is that it feels kind of like uneasy to them, and they convey a sense of exploration and traveling into the unknown, unaware of the dangers out there. And John Williams also has the luxury of having the best motifs to resolve these tracks. The main hooks of Leia's theme, the Binary Sunset, Imperial March, Anakin vs. Obi-Wan, Duel of the Fates, and more all resolve that uneasiness into triumphant victory or bitter defeat, the feeling of just making it, hanging on by a thread, or the fear of falling short. I just thought that was a fun description.
Yeah, good descriptions.
Tokyo Slim brings up Alexander Desplat, who does a lot of
I don't know that
Did a Harry
name.
Potter.
Wes Anderson stuff. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Harry Potter. Clint Mansell, who did Requiem for a Dream, Fountain, Moon, Black Mirror, San Junipero. Desplat does Grand Budapest Hotel, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Shape of Water. I think he won an Oscar for Shape of Water, possibly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think he did. Might not have.
Other historical stuff that I can't pronounce. The Lawrence of Arabia soundtrack, if I recall the story correctly, they had to do the entire soundtrack in like a week and a half or something like that. It
I
was
don't know that
crazy.
story, but-
Look into it.
So as long as
Sounds
it takes
possible.
to watch the movie,
Yeah,
they had to
well-
compose.
First, I had waited to see Lawrence of Arabia until it was in a theater, and I saw it in the Chinese
that's a place
in
to see it,
70
yeah.
millimeter, and it was awesome. I'd never seen it before.
I watched it on a VHS on like a 20-inch TV. Not the right way to see Lawrence
That's
of
how I
Arabia.
watched Braveheart on VHSs in the basement of a church when I was like 13.
That sounds about right. I think I had that experience too.
yeah.
I never recovered.
I always lament like those big movies that you watch on the plane. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
you
yeah,
watch
yeah.
it for the first time on the plane and it's this big,
Yeah.
and you've got like the.
Is that Chris Cooper? Who is that? Whatever. There are a whole bunch of other ones here. Carl Williams asked who our favorite director-composer duo is.
Oh, people who stick together.
Stick together. So they say Hitchcock and Herman, Sergio Leone and Morricone,
You see, you're gonna
Burton
you're gonna say them
Elfman
all.
there. Yeah.
Spielberg, Williams, Miyazaki, Hisashi, Burton Elfman,
Name any
Nolan Zimmer, Anderson Desplat.
Any more you can think of?
None.
None, because like they listen.
They named them
I
all.
can only think of one, but
Those ones.
it doesn't exist anymore. That it was Tony Scott and Harry Gregson Williams.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like he passed away since. But like their combinations, like Domino, Man on Fire, like anything they did together.
they do True Romance?
What was the train one called? The Pelham 123.
Yeah,
Taking a Pelham
Taking
one.
of Pelham
It was a remake of something, wasn't it? But they did
Yeah.
that one together. Incredible scores, and they were always. So one of the cool things they did is they actually worked out like a sound language between them that Harry. And I'm paraphrasing some of this story because I know Harry. So like if this story's wrong, I apologize. But like So what they would do is he would make like a sound palette, you know, like of these dun, 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 just like these kind of one-shot sounds or whatever. And when Tony was in the editing phase, he would use these sounds and pull them in for cuts, for edits. Okay. And then so when Harry came to do the score, he would have like all these pre-edits to work around. But like that was what kind of gave them their identity, you know, like because they were it was kind of the music was like they had a lot of the music was being dictated by the edits or the other way around, but like it was very and like very locked in, you know, like cuts were on the thing. So it was a very collaborative thing, and by giving him some of his sound effects to put in the editing phase, they were able to tie it all in. So like watch something like Domino, it's like mostly like loops and you know, like, so sound loops and stuff, which is just like a pre-record of someone playing something and then you can just drop it in.
That's how I make most of my music.
So you could record like a guitar loop, you playing the guitar, and then you drop it in, and then like if you want it to play again, you just copy it. You know?
It is interesting how the subtlest changes can completely transform the way a scene feels. I remember recently on a TV show spending at least a day trying to find the right sound effects for lights coming on a stage. And it just didn't feel right until you had the right sound for it. And you'll sit there and go, instead of like click, 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 I was looking for boom, 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 like a stadium. But you know what someone could do is they could edit all our sounds together from all our sound effects from this episode and make a song out of it. Yeah. We've done it enough this episode. Yeah. That's the $1 million project.
Yeah. There's a video. I don't know if it exists anymore, but there was a video by Mick Gordon who did Doom, did the music to Doom. And he went round, I think it was GDC, and he went round, he was just like, make a noise, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And he went round and he got all of these samples, which is what you were talking about there, and he wrote a piece of music with all like people just at GDC making random...
a song for a thing that we're doing at Easy Livin', which I won't specify because it'll spoil what we're doing, but I sampled something to make the drum beat. I love sampling.
So please be excited.
Be excited. I realized when I started talking, I was like, no, I can't say what I sampled it from, or it'll ruin the entire thing. So I can't.
So you told us that you can't tell us something.
Yeah.
Please look forward to it.
Please be excited.
Please be excited.
Let's talk about cool, unique, weird, like composing techniques or tricks. I mean, the one everybody knows is Hans Zimmer dropped a piano off a building.
Did he?
For what was it? Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, Mikey Novak actually mentioned that, and I thought of that too. And like in the Joker theme, I think he hits guitar strings with pencils or pens.
Man,
or something like
that story always cracks me up.
Well, you know Hans Zimmer, right?
I worked with. I was like I don't know, like an assistant, I guess, odd job man back in like the Sherlock Holmes 2 days, and then since then, like I wanted to go off and do Metal Gear, so like we parted ways then. But you know, we still interact in something, you know, every now and again. But the thing that always cracks me up. So the story I always heard about the Dark Knight was. They went away and they recorded like, what was it, like 1,000 bars of just like razor blades on strings and stuff. And if you listen to it, it's all like clink, 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 and like, yeah. And apparently they gave it to Chris Nolan to listen to. And I just imagine poor Chris Nolan like getting this thing like, oh, Hans has delivered his first cue. And because he says that he listened to it all dutifully, I just imagine him on this plane listening to 1,000 bars of and like
it's just like, what the hell?
And he's just sitting there going, like, keep an open mind, Chris. Just keep an open mind. But like, you know, and he's like, what was the word? He said, I'm not sure what, but I feel like it's in there somewhere. You know what I mean? And that's the polite way of a director saying,
Be like, what the hell did you just give me?
Ooh, you're looking at something cool there.
Sorry,
that's Johnny Jewel.
By the Johnny Jewel
themes for television. So he did a lot of the composing for Twin Peaks season 3, and he wrote so much music.
Return?
Yeah, for the Return that there was some.
Is Badalamenti dead?
I think his got used also. They were both in there, but there was so much score left over that wasn't used. It just got kind of like its own album. So themes for television, not explicitly Twin Peaks season 3, but if you like that, this is very much in the tune of that. But yeah,
Twin Peaks: The Return grew on me. As I was watching it, I was not having a great time, and now, like months removed, I'm like, oh yeah, that was pretty great.
It's a challenging experience, but by the end, I feel like it adds up to something.
Movie. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Back to what we were talking about.
What were we talking about?
Weird techniques.
So I'd say the best soundtrack. It's not a movie; it's a game. So like I'm stretching it a bit, but my favorite one ever was. Do you remember the score to Infamous by Eamon Tobin?
Oh, the video game.
Infamous.
The video game Infamous.
I didn't know Eamon Tobin did that.
Now you said it, I'm like, did he? But no, he definitely did.
Let's look it
up. So no, 100% did. But like, so what they did is they recorded I remember watching a behind the scenes thing on it, and I was blown away. They were doing all sorts of weird shit. Like, so they were taking all these like trash can lids and they were bowing them. They've got like this old metal rack and they were like hitting it and bowing it. They were getting like brass instruments and using them as percussion instruments. They were getting like bungee cords, strapping it across like a double bass, which is like a big drum, covering it with beads, like hard beans, and then flicking the thing so it goes.
That's really cool.
It's having some fun.
So the whole soundtrack, and the thing I loved about it is because remember I was talking about the Man on Fire sound design thing. It was at the same time, so like I was really big on sound design, and so what they did is they just record all these things, and I just imagined how fun it must have been for Eamon when he got like all these samples because they recorded at Sony. Sony has their own thing.
The Foley
imagine just getting all like these loops and sound hits of all these cool sounds, and then just trying to make this tapestry of like chaos.
Yeah.
That's why I love that score. It is literally like that. That's a good way of putting it. It's like a tapestry of chaos. Like all the bits by themselves sound horrendously like atonal and dissonant, but you put them together and it's like there's another sound for the song someone's gonna get, but like amazing soundtrack. They did so many things that I can't even remember.
I have a recommendation for a great sample if someone wants to do it. I had to get some medical tests done recently. Luckily everything is cool, but I had to get an echocardiogram to look at shit in my heart, and then it made the craziest noise. I thought it would be good in the song. So normally you think of a heartbeat as ba-boom, ba-boom.
Yeah.
But it's actually really kind of squishy in there, like a cool Bjork song or something. It was like, and I was like, oh man, someone could take that and make something. Aphex Twin or somebody could make a song out of it. Just a recommendation.
I don't want to piss on your parade, but like heartbeat stuff is like a thing. There's like a category of sounds.
I've heard a lot of it, but I didn't realize like the actual like organic sound.
Oh, you mean like literally
like the squishy part of it, because the boom, boom, boom is really overused in movies. But the sort of like
it might be a bit wishy-washy to mix, but because it'd be like.
I wonder if you could do the same thing.
You totally could.
Like an ultrasound of a baby.
Well, they usually sound like
kind of, it's kind of
more sound.
They use that in movies a lot.
We've got a whole soundboard here that we created.
It's fun. I mean, like one of the things I do is I own a company that makes sound design for other composers to write music with. Like
Plug it. What's it called?
Hybrid2.com. Anyway,
hybrid,
but
like what you were talking about before.
Exactly. But like what we do is we record like a washing machine, and then we hit it with a hammer, but then we layer it with some like hitting a car, slamming a car door. Like you layer all these things together like you would with any sound design, and you create these musical elements. But that's one of those. Sorry, it was a complete side tangent, but carry on.
But no, I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
It was just in that field, so like that's one of those things that I do. So I often find myself on occasion just going, I need a sound that's like, and I will record it into the microphone, so that then I'm layering sounds on top of what I said, so that I know what it is I'm supposed to be building, so I don't lose track. And it's funny because you have your own recall. So if you record your own voice doing it, even though like if I showed you, you would just hear. But to me, I hear all the intricate details of that thing building up. Every time I hear my voice do it, I hear all the bits that the idea had on it.
There's something that I've run into sometimes that I'm sure you have as well, is like I've done I recently got into modular synths too. And I have a drummer from another mother and a marbles and a Plats doing their thing, and this one thing I came up with it came up with this really cool thing, and like I hear this really cool bass line in it as well. Yeah. But then sometimes I was listening to it and I'm like, wait, is that actually in it, or am I just like mentally hearing it?
It's like that Yanni and Laurel thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah. And what was the other one where you could decide which one you heard? It was the one that came out right after Yanni and Laurel.
I can't remember which one
it was. It was like the whatever. It was like a duck or something.
It's similar things. It's just because your brain has an amazing ability to fill in information. So if it only gets half information, it fills in the rest. So the Yanni and Laurel one is like the frequency spectrum. A lot of it, I think, depends on your hearing. So if you can hear more higher frequencies, you'll hear it one way. But if it's muted, you'll only hear the underbit, and your brain will fill in the rest. So your brain is more likely to hear one thing if you've got worse hearing.
There's the thing with teenagers, right? That they can hear higher frequencies. So some places in the mall would play these irritating high frequencies to drive away teenagers, but most adults couldn't hear it.
Well, and men also apparently lose that faster.
But that's because we're more likely to put our face up against a speaker, like in a club.
Blow things up. A friend of mine is having like a problem with her car, and she was driving around with the mechanic, and she was like, yeah, so that noise is really irritating, and he
you
was
didn't
like,
hear
and he
anything?
couldn't hear anything.
That's the engine.
And then like he was like starting to be like, well, no, I don't hear anything. I'm sure your car is fine. And then she like had like a really like, she was like a very empowering like moment where she rolled the window down to a woman that was walking on the street, like a stranger, and was just like, sorry, do you hear this crazy noise coming out of my car? And the woman was like, oh yeah, it's terrible. And the guy was just like, she said he got like really worried. He was like, oh my God, I can't hear it. Like, what's happening? Felt kind of bad for him. But yeah. Happy Gaming brings up Hans Zimmer. Connor oh yeah, I liked this story. Connor Rosine, with regard to Interstellar's original soundtrack, Hans Zimmer noted, apparently on his noted version of the script, after Cooper says docking it in the script, Zimmer just wrote "Go ham" on the organ, which became the track "No Time for Caution." But then the track went so hard on the organ that when they released the official version of the score, Zimmer replaced the organ with strings because he thought that most people's headphones wouldn't be able to keep up with the organ. But then people got really, really mad, and so they had to release the organ version too.
Wow.
Which I thought was really funny.
Interesting. That is how composers talk to musicians, by the way. Go ham. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's a very casual language with musicians because a lot of the time you don't talk music. It's the same as how you talk to like a director. Like if you say go ham, you know what that means.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, anecdote from my own life, like I used to be in bands a lot in Chicago, and I was with people who were like really good musicians. Like my guitar player is just, at the time, he genius, you know, like went to music conservatory at DePaul, like knows everything, you know. And we would be like coming up with songs, and I would have like an idea, and I would always like think in like metaphors for like if I'm singing about being like sad about a woman or something, I'm like singing about like a house in the desert, right? And like, and I would describe it to him. I'm like, yeah, so we got to be, it's like the parched ground, and like you see the cracks, and there's like this building, and the wood is all sun bleached and stuff. And then
That's exactly how I give directions.
Yeah. And then he would just start going like, and I'm like, yeah.
I'd have gone, man, can you just make that really sweaty? Just make it feel really sweaty.
Yeah. Thirstier.
Just make it thirstier.
But yeah, totally. Like that's how you just spew emotions. But like that's what I love about film, and I think that music is a huge part of that. And I think I may have said this before, but like music is the most effective way of just like hurling feelings at people.
Oh yeah.
And then when it's paired with a movie, that's why I love film so much. Is it really is the marriage of like every fine art at one time, and like. Yeah, man, you could just like, and that's why I think that works so well. Is like you tell the musician like these feelings and images, and then like you just do it.
Like on this. So this stage play was about horses, and this rhythm here is da 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 da. And I'm like, play it like you're riding a horse.
Yeah, naturally.
So it became like da 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 da. You know, like it became like the galloping feel, and you could see them all like kind of feeling. they're all like da 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 da. You know, but like it's a fun, just a fun behind the scenes comment on that is that. Yeah, the way we talk to each other is very flat like that. Just go ham. Just go big.
Someone, not in a comment that I pulled directly, but mentioned Ben Frost. Mm-hmm. And I think Ben Frost is a really interesting musician / composer. But he did a thing that you would probably dig called the Wasp Factory. Did I ever tell you about the Wasp Factory?
I think you did tell me about this. Yeah. So it was like an audio book maybe, or no?
It's like an opera.
Okay.
Neo-opera. And it's inside the head of a homicidal, misogynist little boy.
Yeah, I think there's a book, right, that it's based on.
It's based on a book, and which I have not read because, good Lord, it seems depressing as hell. But the cool catch is all the characters in the opera, I guess, are in the voices in his head, but they're all women. It just makes it this really cool. Anyway.
I love simple blurbs for complex stories.
Yeah.
It's about a homicidal kid.
Yeah. But like that, the reason I bring it up, I'm not just randomly spewing.
I'm enjoying it.
About Ben Frost and the Wasp Factory is like the feelings elicited by that music. Like I can just like think the Wasp Factory and like immediately feel everything from the Wasp Factory. And whatever. That's just what music does. So that's a dumb thing to say.
What other films can you do that with? Like you say the name of it and you feel the score. Like I feel it with Gladiator. Like that's why I wrote it down. Like the melodies in Gladiator, you know what I mean? You can say it and my dun da 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 dun da da da.
Yeah,
like I'm hearing like the battle theme in my head.
Hans Zimmer is pretty good at that. Like I mean, like for better or worse, Interstellar, Inception. you get that kind of vibe. But for me, more it's like stuff like The Brothers Bloom or like those kinds of weird comedic melancholy movies. Those are the ones that really like Amelie and like all those like French pseudo comedy movies like City of Lost Children and stuff like those kind of stuff. I can be like, that's the mood. Yep.
What do you think about the score? What's it called? The Holiday? That's a Zimmer score, isn't it?
Is that the one with Kate Winslet and Jack Black?
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good movie.
Do you remember the score?
No.
Fair enough. It's a good score. It's a good score. You should give it another go. It's a good one. It's a fun one. But no, it was Zimmer's score, so related.
We did. Helen Y asked about placeholder songs, and Warren Blythe asked about not putting music in a scene. So we actually already answered those. Real quick, if you have any thoughts on how much is it possible to have too much score?
Yes, absolutely. Like what I said earlier about the muscle. You know what I mean? If you just run, if you sprint for the whole thing. Afterwards, you'll just be too exhausted to enjoy your time. Whereas if you sprint for a bit and then enjoy the scenery, let the world around you just be for a minute, and then jog off, and then you know what I mean. It's got more of a day to it. You know, it's got more of a story to it.
Yeah.
The reverse side of that question I saw there was how much is too little.
Yeah.
And I have the perfect example of that. One of my favorite movies is a silent film, The Passion of Joan of Arc. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Lots of close-ups. I do have this here. The thing about the first time I saw this movie, it had zero score, and it never had a score written for it originally.
Wow.
So sometimes movie houses, when they would screen it, they'd play their own little thing, but I didn't know that, and I put it on, and it was just complete silence, and it was impossible to watch in complete silence, no audio whatsoever. So I just put on my own music the first time I watched it.
That's awesome.
But now Criterion has re-released The Passion of Joan of Arc with a new score that was composed by members of Portishead and Goldfrapp.
What?
And it completely reinvents the movie. And
That's
like
crazy.
I already loved the movie before, but now it's shot up to like top 10 for me. It's so tragic and so captivating. And like I'm not a spiritual person at all. Obviously, Joan of Arc was, but the score got me there. And it's got some of your abrasive, cacophonous stuff in there. It's not all melodic, but you really feel the sacrifice she's making. It feels like she's Braveheart. Like she feels more triumphant, yelling
really
freedom.
cool.
Than
It
Braveheart
sounds
does.
like that they gave you the context, the correct context to understand the
100%.
pictures that they were giving you. I mean, like that's why
It's a cool before and after, because I heard it with nothing and realized how much was missing.
Yeah, like if there's sometimes like, I think it's M. Night Shyamalan, you know, like with James Newton Howard. There's another combination, by the way. I was watching a video with him, and he's always M. Night Shyamalan when he goes to James Newton Howard. He always says like, I don't want to score this film. Like I want no music, no music, no music. And then what James Newton Howard does is he writes music before the film, even like just reads the script, writes some music. And then it's very clever actually because it allows them to kind of sit with it for a while and then temp it in and then try it and then slowly over time build. But yeah, too little music is I don't think it's as dangerous as too much because like you said,
that's interesting. Even as the composer, you would make that judgment.
Silence.
I think you're right though. Yeah.
Silence is music as well. You know what I mean? It's what is it? If
it's a rest.
If everything's highlighted, nothing's highlighted. It's one of those things. You know, like if everyth's got music, then music's just there for the sake of it.
Special.
No one. Exactly that.
Syndrome. What? That's who says that in Incredibles 1. Incredibles 2 is bad. Yeah.
Where are we going with that?
I don't know. We'll just do the next thing. We've been going for a long time, so I'm going to try to breeze through the rest a little quicker.
I'm having fun.
I'm having a blast. I just want to respect your time.
I'm here to party.
There's a theater in El Segundo.
Is that like part of the name?
Yeah. There's a theater in
Segundo.
El Segundo. If El Segundo is south by that freaky like gas plant, that's where I'm thinking.
El Segundo's got a big gas plant.
Yeah. There's a theater down there, the name of which I don't recall, that plays silent theaters, and they have like a giant Wurlitzer organ
like the old
in
school
it.
one.
Oh, have you ever seen a silent film with a live score performed?
Is it the one
That's
with
what I was
the
going to say.
Has it got like all the bells and stuff?
They played them. I've seen a couple of movies there. One where the person was live playing it, but then another one, they have a cool thing where I assume a computer is hooked up to this thing, but like it records the performance of the artist.
MIDI boxes.
Yeah. And so they played. I think it was Girl Shy, an early, not Charlie Chaplin, the other one. the big famous early silent guy who's really funny.
Buster Keaton?
Yep, that's the one. They played that movie with the like saved Wurlitzer thing.
Oh, cool.
It was really cool. That movie's actually pretty cool.
I went to one at the Hammer Museum where they showed some
Ah.
Fellini movies with a live organ score.
Yeah.
And then they also showed, and for some reason I keep coming back to this, I apologize, an old pornography film from like the 1920s, and it was like a satanic pornography thing where people were wearing robes and stuff, but it was like with all these museum goers, like mostly like older people in their 60s and 70s, and we were all sitting there watching a live score to this satanic erotic film. It was quite the experience.
That's phenomenal. Porn will rewrite your neural pathways and give you novelty addiction.
I think we all have novelty addiction now, don't we?
I got
As a
over
culture.
it.
How'd you do it? How'd you break the
I
cycle?
stopped.
You stopped novelty altogether?
Well, the porn
Or
side,
specifically
yeah.
erotica.
Erotica,
Okay.
yeah. I gave it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
life is much better.
Dude, I got
Americans are
some
a
going on
wash.
right now.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, mine's so bad.
I'm getting back on or off the wagon, whichever means
this is when your parents come to your bedroom and you throw it under the bed. Yeah.
throw all your final Italian softcore soundtrack.
I listened to it for the
records.
compositions, Dad.
It's really sterling compositions. What the hell?
This is more fun than it has any right to be.
I'm having a blast. Anyway, I want to talk about the film's soundtracks informing how you feel without telling you how you feel. And the example I have, real quick,
Go for it.
is the same damn composer, Junkie XL.
Yeah, right.
I really liked Mad Max Fury Road soundtrack. I had a blast. And then I saw The Dark Tower, which admittedly, not a great movie, but the soundtrack was not good. It sounded like bad X-Files episodes. Like,
Yeah, I can picture that.
Really,
Yeah.
really on the nose, just terrible. And then I looked it up afterwards, and I was like, wow, this is the same dude? Like,
Yeah.
what the hell? But those are an example for me of, like, Also, Shane Carruth writes the music as he's writing the
For Upstream Color?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I love that.
love Upstream Color, dude. It's like one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies. But he writes the music as he's writing the script.
I acted in a student film with Amy Simons that my
God
wife directed.
damn
She's
it.
really cool.
Yeah, a friend of mine is friends with both of them. And
Oh, cool.
I'm so
I don't
jealous.
know Shane
I'm
Carruth.
so
I don't know the
jealous.
director. Yeah.
I do have my little. I was at a double screening of Primer and Upstream Color, and Shane Carruth and Amy Simons were answering questions, and I said, because he had listed a few of his favorite movies, and they were like some of my favorite movies, which it was like The Limey and North by Northwest, like a few of my other like actual all-time favorites, and I just stood up. And I asked, like, a bunch of people were asking, like, classic Q&A questions where they went on for goddamn ever and didn't say anything. And then they were all like, oh, yeah. But I just went up and I was like, have you seen Cachet? And then Amy Simons was like, the Michael Haneke film? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, no, I haven't seen it. And I'm like, I think you might like it.
So you did that in the Q&A
In
audience?
the Q&A,
Yeah.
I just recommended Cachet to him.
My question's not so much a question, it's more of a comment, really.
You want to comment? Anyway.
Man, what was
And then
that?
she was like, that's good. I was like, yeah.
What was the name of that? I don't even know if it was a movie. It might have been a play, but like I think it was it Lynch? Like it was rabbits or something. It's just two rabbits on
Oh, yeah,
stage.
yeah.
Man, the
That's a
soundtrack to that is
David
incredible.
Lynch. You're talking about David Lynch
Yeah.
movie? Yeah.
Is it a
It's- I
movie?
think it's just called Rabbits. It was like a web series.
I don't know what
Ah.
it's like a
Interesting.
feature. Is it feature length? It's a
They
long.
put it out. I think it was a web series, and then they put it out as like a DVD.
I haven't heard of
If you
this.
watch it all in one
I
go,
haven't
it feels
seen it.
like a really creepy feature. It's the most
Yeah.
bizarre thing. So it's like two people dressed, or three people, I think, dressed as rabbits. And it's like they're living a life that's spread over time. So like one person will ask a question and another person will answer it, but not for like 10 minutes. You know, like, and so like they're having this conversation beyond each other, and they're all like standing really unnaturally, and the score's just got this kind of.
That sounds about right.
Just constantly going on, but it's interesting. Like you don't watch it for enjoyment; you watch it as if to try and figure out what it's
Yeah.
trying to say. But then
I
every
think that
now
was
and
like
again,
the pre-Inland Empire, like when he became obsessed with autofocus and consumer cameras, so everything looked like weird and
it
bad.
did look weird and bad. But like
Yeah.
that's kind of its.
But it's like the point.
Yeah, that's its aesthetic. And then there's these moments where like something will happen. And there's just like this little undercurrent. From what I remember, if there may not even be music there, I can't even remember. But to me,
just
I
an air
felt
conditioner.
I felt a musical moment happen. You know, like. But just that is the only time that something happened for me. And I'll be so embarrassed if like there's no music there now, because in my head there's 100% music when that happens. But like just that,
well, you're a composer. That's your
but
job.
like going back to like the highlighting thing, like this whole thing is just woo, 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 and then someone opens the door and it's like and then back to woo, 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 woo. And it's just these juxtapositions of just these moments, these little.
I want to see this.
I want to see it too. Yeah.
Don't watch it expecting to understand. And even with like the time thing, that's like the conversation being had over time, I think is like a theory. I don't know if that was actually true, but you watch it and you start trying to like piece it together that way. It's actually quite fun.
That's very cool.
Try and listen to the soundtrack because it's one of those ones where it like, is it music? Is it you know, or is it just like you say, is it air conditioning?
Is it live or is it memories?
Unsettling. Yeah, it's really good, really well done. Whatever it is, it's really well done.
My wife and I have a running joke that my taste in movies is boring and confusing, and I do like that a lot. I like to be slightly bored and very confused.
You and I
That's a great time at the movies to me. And
I probably went to the same screening of Werkmeister Harmonies, the midnight screening or whatever.
I did not see that, but yeah,
really?
I know you pitched me on it. Yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
Uh-uh.
Oh, yeah, right. It's 4 hours long and 11 shots.
Yep. Sounds perfect.
You'd love it.
Sounds ideal.
You'd love it.
That again is one of those things you do so you can talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Also, I've thought of it like 3 times for no particular reason, but have you guys seen Wings of Desire, the Wim Wenders?
I have, and
That has
I
Nick
do not
Cage-
like it.
Really?
Yeah, I do not.
But it's got Nick
like
Cave
it.
in it.
Yeah, Nick Cave is great.
That's my favorite
He's the
part of
only
the
good
movie.
part
Yeah,
in the
that's my favorite
movie.
part of the movie. I don't remember
I want
the
to
rest.
like Wim Wenders. I think I've seen something else by him. Who did Paris, Texas? Is that?
That's him.
Okay,
I
I
haven't seen
love
that.
Paris,
I haven't seen
Texas.
that.
Wings of Desire. I just couldn't get there. I wasn't
What
sure
about
what he was
Nicholas
doing.
Rogue?
What's his films again?
Man Who Fell to Earth, Walkabout.
Oh yeah. Those are cool. I've seen Man Who Fell to Earth. Yeah.
Walkabout's cool.
This is going to be embarrassing, but like, and you can tell me, but like, did Children of Men have any music in it?
It had music in it because
But that wasn't the-
Michael
was it
Caine
diegetic?
is like, do you mind if I play Zen music?
Yeah, not
and
not
it's
ones
noise
that's
rock.
in the music.
Not
not ones.
diegetic?
Yeah, not diet. I can never say it right, but yeah, not that.
Me either.
Diegetic.
I
Not
love
that.
diegetic.
Not in the film.
Shout out to Sharp Objects, really
Yeah.
cool.
Not
use
source
of-
music. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in the
yeah,
scene. I don't. Does it have score?
It might not, or if it does, it's pretty
I
low
like
key.
so like going back to what we were saying. I feel like that's a score that would work without a score. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
because I can't remember there being one, and if it was, like it couldn't have been doing much. But if it was, it did it well, I guess.
It was
I don't know.
Yeah,
But that just seems like a film that would work without too much music.
Yeah, just there to fill the.
It's so gritty and
It's a very immediate feeling, and
Yeah.
sometimes scores can kind of frame it as an object away from you.
yeah.
Whereas, and that's good sometimes. It heightens it, but without it, you feel more like you're.
It does maintain a degree of gritty realism
Yeah.
because there's no music.
Except for when the blood hits the lens and then it fades away later, and you can tell where the cut was because of it. That's a pet peeve of mine. Like cameras being there when they're not meant to be there.
Or the truck goes
Huge
in the
pet peeve
mud,
of
like
mine. Yeah,
on the
huge
camera.
pet peeve of
Yeah,
mine. Like unless the camera's part of the story, don't have
Not
shit
a big
hit
fan
the
of
lens.
Saving Private Ryan. Like,
Yeah,
don't do
I
that.
don't know. The biggest one that gets like District 9 is a fine movie, but like the fact that the camera person just suddenly stops existing in the world of the story really makes me angry. Because like it's an actual camera person for the first half, and then they're standing in the tall grass. Charlton Copley or whatever's hiding from the cops. Camera guy doesn't duck. Cop looks right at him, doesn't see him, and like from then on, there's just not a camera guy anymore. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on?
This is a bit of a side subject, but how do you feel about camera moves like that in video games? Like Metal Gear, for example, a lot of it was just one big long shot, and it's doing these unnatural. Do you like that, or do you?
I like.
Do you
I
think
like
there's a
when
joy
games
in the
do,
edit?
Yeah, I like when games do cool like camera stuff. I mean, the one that really, it's a fixed angle part of the game anyway. In Silent Hill 2, when you walk into a laundry room in the apartment building, the camera follows you in and then like drops and tilts in a really weird way. And then you walk out and it undoes
like
it.
the Dutch angle.
Yeah,
thing.
it's really cool.
It's always interesting when games do like rack focuses when it's like obviously not a camera,
Obviously
but
not,
takes so much grammar from film. But I think it's fine when games do that. People are very like games should be games, but films got their grammar from novels like D.W. Griffith, a horrible racist, but he borrowed a lot of film language from Charles Dickens novels, and now we're borrowing some film syntax for video games. It's fine.
You look at God of War, like one take, basically.
Yeah.
You look at Tomb Raider, water and blood's hitting the damn camera all the time, and it's like there's no camera.
Man, when you think about it, the application of like music and sound in Silent Hill 2 was so good.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember it was the first time in a video game.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time in a video game, like, the bit where first time you go from the street into that like apartment building and the sound just all disappears. I think that was the first time I ever in a video game just stopped. You know what I mean? It was like, what?
You're like, something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, like you are primed, because of horror scores and stuff. When the music cuts out, something's gonna happen. That
Which
was
is
really clever use because I think they knew that you would feel that way and you would.
Which is
it's all dark
used
and
in movies
everything.
all the time too. I
Exactly.
mean, we've kind of talked about it too, but like that vacuum.
It's done so often that it's you now counter it.
It's a language, yeah.
Yeah, you now have the red herring scare, which is the da 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 da. Bang.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they turn around and then it's behind them. But then, do you think there'll come a point where you have to triple bluff it? Like
I was just thinking about that. Like, how do you subvert subversion?
and
and
then
not not in a Game of Thrones season 8 kind of a way where it's just bad. But
they kind of just forgot that they were there.
I don't like. I was talking about this with Sophia the other day, and like how J.J. Abrams is good at starting things and bad at finishing them, which is why I'm nervous about 9. But he'll start a bunch of shows and then leave. Like he wasn't there for the end of Lost, right? Like why didn't the Game of Thrones guys do that? They clearly didn't want to do it anymore. But why did they insist on hanging out? Like HBO was like, we want more seasons, we want more of this, blah blah blah. Why didn't
There's a mystery of what happened. I'd love to know. At some
Could
point,
they not change writers? Is that not a thing they were allowed to do? Or?
There's a lot of
they
writers
were writing
on it,
them
but
themselves.
Yeah.
I think it was just like they got cocky.
Oh, right.
They say I think HBO had been offered to let them do more episodes. It's like,
and
nah,
they said
we're
no,
good. We'll wrap it
6.
up in fewer.
I
we
think
want that
they
Star Wars money.
Honestly, well, yeah, they were tired of it and wanted to do Star Wars, and they didn't. Like they ran out of books, so they didn't know what to do.
There's so many things behind the scenes and making shows and movies that happen that can ruin it. And I don't want to name any particular project that I've been on, but there's sometimes where people who have the money don't know how to do things creatively, but they get to say, and you kind of have to do it. You can only fight them so much before they kick you out. So,
I mean, have they ever made anything like original that was good between them?
Not really. I mean, if you look at their IMDb's, one of them has like nothing, and the other one has like Wolverine Origins.
Yeah, because it's like in composing, you have two different things. So like you have arrangers and you have composers. So like a composer is someone who creates things from scratch, and a good arranger is someone who takes like a little melody or just a motif and can create a whole thing from that. It seems like they're good arrangers. You know what I mean? They can take material and turn it into something really well, but when it comes to composing, when it comes to creating the original,
and that's kind of
not their
to
skill
both
set.
of these points. I think like J.J. Abrams and George Lucas is like the prototypical one of this. Is like really amazing idea man, and if he's working on a constraint without a lot of money, comes out with some really good movies. But then if he has all the money and all the time, comes out with the prequel trilogies where it's just like, yo, hey, things were better when you didn't have infinite access to CG.
Restrictions create creativity.
Yes.
They really do. Do you ever self-impose constrictions on yourself?
I am on a binge at the minute. The past few cues I wrote are using sample libraries that are no younger than a year old. So like they have to be at least a year old for me to use them because I tend to buy a lot of things and then never use them, like so I have so many like cool sounds that I haven't even played with yet. But yeah, that's
infinite choices are death.
We call that gear acquisition syndrome.
The number of synths you need is the number you have plus one. Yeah,
yes, exactly that. Yeah,
that's a great formula.
Yeah, man.
I'm done for now.
And then Matrix Brute 2 comes out, and it's got more buttons. And
I wonder if Wendy Carlos is getting any of that synth money still. I hope so. She's awesome.
You should do that.
She is still around. I want to meet her sometime.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was telling him to bring his synths in for show and tell. I'll bring mine.
Bring them in here would be really a pain.
We'll have a jam. Do
a
craft work.
We'll do it at my house.
Yeah, we'll jam it out.
There's too many racks of stuff. I could bring the modular in. It has a handle.
They call that Euro crack for a reason.
Yeah.
It's called for those who don't know, modular system is like these little small things you buy, and you plug them in, and then they add up to a big thing. But they're really addictive. Like once you start buying modular units for your synthesizer, you spend a lot of money. They're like $250.
They're all like $200 or $300 a piece.
Yeah,
like
and you end
entry level.
So like an entry level box.
Some are like
$100,
but that's like as cheap as they get.
And they're really confusing to use. But the name of them is Euro Track, and people renamed it Euro Crack. So.
Yeah.
That was just a really niche joke that I don't think your viewers would have got.
Eurorack is definitely Euro crack. It's pretty nuts though, but it's fun because you can build your own synth to a very specific purpose.
The good thing about modular synths, they can make sounds that normal synths can't.
Yeah,
because they're all about plugging things that aren't. It's like plugging the output of that into the input of that. So like the speed of that thing controls how fast that thing's closing.
control voltage all over the place. It's whatever. Pacing is good. Michelle Jackson. Talking about feelings instead of whatever.
Feelings.
You actually said this before. Michelle Jackson said something. You said that music showing the feelings of a character is good instead of showing like what you want the audience to feel or what you think the scene should be telling you.
It's perspective. It's like, so whose story are you following? Like if you're following a singular character, and let's say that they go to a birthday party, but their girlfriend's just broken up with them.
Right.
You wouldn't play the happy birthday music. You know what I mean? Unless you're trying to do a juxtaposition.
Yeah.
If you're following this character's emotionally feeling bad. And the point of music there is to show that even though they're in this happy situation, this is how they feel.
Right.
Because you can't show that unless they're either crying or going, I feel really sad. You know? Like that.
You can't have your characters announce how they feel.
But
that makes me feel angry.
But that's exactly that's what I mean by music. That's the music saying something that you can't otherwise do in a non-awkward way. You know what I mean? You can't. Just readjust it.
I was like subconsciously arranging this.
Passion of Joan of Arc. You know you want one. It's so good.
Okay. Here's something I just thought would be fun to talk about with you guys, and that's self-plagiarization. The one that comes to mind, of course, is James Horner, because it's in every one of his movies.
But that's just his like Jason Derulo, right?
Yeah, it's his.
You need a
John.
tag. A lot of sound producers and hip hop have
Pitbull's
a
Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, but it is. It's funny
Shut
because
up,
it's like he did it in every single one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in
I don't think
self-plagiarization. That's a weird
I
term to
don't really think it's a
use.
bad thing.
I mean, I think you can play out something, and your audience might want you to
get
move
tired
on.
of it, yeah.
But plagiarizing from yourself, I mean, I feel like a lot of filmmakers have one subject that they revisit. Like Paul Thomas Anderson is all about Grumpy Dad, and what do you do with Grumpy Dad, and why is Grumpy Dad ruining the world? But that's okay. I'll see him do every single variation on that theme he wants to.
Yeah.
And some composers are the same way.
I mean, like other than the fact that like you can only really do what you know, so it's always going to have a certain degree of
You're always you.
familiarity. Yeah, familiarity. You're not going to be unless like you're intentionally doing like different genres. I always feel like I always think there's more to music or something. Like if I can be a bit wanky for a second, but like if you ever notice like how every composer always feels like there's a song or a feeling in their head that they're trying to express, and every score they do is like a different attempt.
Right, and they never get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you put a few John Williams scores together, they all have like, they don't sound the same, but they have like a similar vibe. Like he's trying to achieve the same thing, you know? Like, and so I feel like every composer's got like that one perfect song.
Yeah.
And every score they ever do is them trying to
Circling around it.
Like
Yeah,
I saw this video today that blew my mind. I think it was all of Beethoven's symphonies played at the same time,
wow.
over the top of each other. And there is actually moments of like coherence, you know, like, and that like you could say, well, maybe he's plagiarized. Like the chord progressions fall perfectly in alignment. The rhythms fall in alignment.
But it's like, this is just what sounded good to Beethoven.
Yeah, and this, but when you play it together, it almost sounds like the cacophony of it. It almost sounds like he was writing one piece his whole life. At certain points, you're like, it feels like this symphony was this section to this song. You know, like the whole Fifth Symphony. That whole thing was just to fill this gap in this. When you stack
That's a
them.
very cool theory.
That plays into my point of like everyone has that moment, you know, that thing in their head.
Right.
So like maybe like someone should put all John Williams scores or Hans's together and see if there's any moments of coherence and just snip them out. Because those moments of coherence, it's like, you know, when you sit in traffic and you see like 4 cars blinkers in front of you, and then there's that one moment where they all line up. Yeah, it does that to a degree. So there's moments where it's like, what the fuck's going on? But it's like I feel like there's to a degree
there's do you know Nils Fram?
No.
You'd probably dig him. He's a composer, musician. He's done like 1 or 2 movies, I think, Victoria or something. But I really love him. He's really cool. But he does some synth stuff, a lot of piano stuff. But his most recent album is called All Melody, and every time I hear the song. There's a song on the album also called All Melody. And every time I hear it, and I haven't tested this yet, and maybe someone on the internet has already done this, but like I always had a theory that All Melody is actually a harmony to a previous song that he did called Says. And I always want to like put them together, but I always forget. And I'm sure it's not, but it just makes me
I've done that before in cues. Like,
really?
Like I've had an idea, and I'm like, what would like sometimes writer's block happens to everyone. It's like, what happens if I just load up that song and come up with a new like a new section for it, you know? And then like what usually happens is like a new melody or a new vibe. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't work with that. But that idea
could be
that was born from this, I can now drop over here. Like that does happen, like this kind of, like you call it plagiarizing, but this kind of it's just subconscious. So like whenever you listen to a thing, whenever you have an emotional response to something, your subconscious remembers it. It's a survival mechanism. You know, like that was a good thing. That's not dangerous. I'll remember that. So next time you see it. And then over time, all these like subconscious things build up in your mind. So when you write, you like, I want the music to feel safe and comfortable. You're like your brain, you're not thinking of that moment, but your brain remembers what it feels. And sometimes like that subconsciously works into the score.
Yeah.
You know? It's interesting the way that like as composers, we kind of pull from all these like these little cool things, like what I was saying with the MGO thing, just pulling these little elements and dropping them in. Most scores are written like that.
And like I think that you go to a person because you want, by and large, you want like that person's take. Like you go to John Williams because you want horns and whatever. You go to Hans Zimmer because you want, his style, and like that happens for a reason because that person has their point of view and they're always going to write their own their music.
Yeah, like. I mean, like I was going to say you wouldn't hire Hans Zimmer for like romantic, but you would. Like Hans Zimmer's one of those like does everything.
But you wouldn't.
I know what you mean.
You wouldn't hire Hans Zimmer to be Goblin.
He's not a summer goth.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like a math goth. I don't know what kind of goth he is.
It's like you wouldn't hire.
We should categorize all people as just
a different type
kinds
of
goths.
Yeah. Hans Zimmer's math goth.
It's like you wouldn't hire Lady Gaga to sing a metal song unless it was something weird like that. No, but I mean the specific way it's done. You know, like you wouldn't get her to scream and shout because she's an amazing singer, amazing musicians. They're both music, they're both singing, but it's different. So like composing, like Hans, like most big composers can do anything.
Yeah,
like,
you can do. Yeah.
But like when you're talking like most general projects where someone has a thing that they're good at, you know, you probably
like Danny Elfman is like he does Danny Elfman when he's with Tim Burton, but then like if you look up Danny Elfman's IMDb page at home, listeners. And like he's probably done the soundtrack to like 30 movies you didn't realize Danny Elfman did the soundtrack to. Like he did like The Firm or whatever. And
the Tom Cruise movie?
Yeah, I think it's The Firm or like Pelican Brief or like some boring like lawyer movie. Not boring, it's fine. But like, he does like all these other like way more run of the mill.
They all do.
Yeah.
Like, if you go down the IMDb page of any of them, they're all like
millions.
Like documentaries from like BBC and all these weird things, and some of them are still recent. It's just that like the only ones you ever really hear about are the ones that hit press, and press. You have to do a whole press thing if you want to get like a soundtrack out there these days. So you just can't do it to all of them. I mean, some of these guys do tens of scores in a year.
Yeah. Danny Elfman should release a Forest Goth collection because that's my favorite sound of his.
Yeah.
I Beach Goth. Team Beach Goth.
The final question that I asked the patrons, very serious question. I said, can a score be good if it doesn't have synths in it?
Only rarely.
Rarely.
If you look at if we count on these, probably 80% are synths.
Richard Flowers says, I'll lean into it. No, and in fact, actors, cameras, blocking, and moving sets should only be directed with MIDI controllers from here on
That's
out.
hyperbole. Synths are very in right now. They're going to fall out again.
They'll never fall out.
No, not to us.
Oh, okay.
Not to us. Not to the synth goths.
I don't think
we're going to
will.
keep the hope alive. But,
Matt, like the fun thing is, particularly as a composer, I mean, like, So when technology was, when computers and stuff were happening, as an organic musician, like a cello string, you could see the potential of the technology as something that didn't exist. Now that we have computers and we can literally create any sound. Like, I'm always curious, is there going to be another moment where we're going to be like, oh, we can do that?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because like you say that synths will go out of fashion. I don't think they ever will. I think they'll be different. Like, they'll come up with new concepts. But I don't think it's a new technology.
Because
you have to think like strings, for example. At the time, they were technology. That is technology. And think how long that lasted before we came up. Like, if you explained a computer to the people writing back then, in the classical era, that it would be magic. So
they'd burn you as
for
a
something
witch.
new, like for synths to go out of fashion, something new that we literally can't even think of right now would have to come along, I think.
That would be fun.
It would have to be a technology that completely supersedes.
It's like Ali G. What if synths, but better?
Synths, but I mean, I definitely think to your point kind of is like the survive kind of Stranger Things vibe is definitely going to hit maximum
It's
capacity.
about to go on its way out, even though I love it. I love it. That's my favorite sound, but
like,
it's about to go out of
vibe is definitely going to shift into other things.
As a novelty. I know what you mean.
But
the 80s.
But
it'll cycle back around when we're 70, and then we'll be back in.
But my Moog one was definitely a great purchase. Speaking of Moog, Bob Will has a little quote for us.
Go for it.
A score can be good without synths, but it cannot be great. Consequently, a score with synths cannot possibly be bad.
I've heard some bad synth
We all
scores.
know is Moog's second law of synths.
My favorite synth quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember it exactly, was from Hans. And he said that when I was younger, I had enough money for either a synth or a car. And he says, I still can't drive to this day, but the synth bought me my car. The synth I bought can now buy me as many cars as I want, or something like that.
He made the right choice.
He definitely made the right choice.
Let's see here. Oh, we've said it a few times, but Space Dom wanted to know if Vangelis is pronounced like a J or a hard G. Is the G pronounced?
Well, we're on Vangelis.
Vangelis or Vangelis?
However you pronounce his name.
Vangelis.
Antarctica is a Vangelis deep cut, but I like it way better than Blade Runner. Yeah, it's for a movie called Antarctica. I've never seen it, but so much better than the rest of his music catalog. I highly recommend it. Antarctica.
Did you just walk past it and was like, I'll take it?
Yes, actually, because
I
was collecting a lot of
I respect
Vangelis
that.
scores.
The art on this album, so it says Antarctica all big up here, and then it has Antarctica, and there's a target zooming in on it, and it just says the South Pole. Right?
Yeah.
It's like in case
It's
you
evocative
didn't
of
know
something.
what we were
Yeah.
talking about.
I almost don't want to see the
There's some
movie because
political
I've made the
intrigue.
own movie in my mind.
Yeah.
What's the movie in your mind?
It is about a person coming to terms with the iceberg in themselves.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What's
Man-
the soundtrack sound like?
Something about the target gives it like a cheesy 90s, like the bad guys in the South
Yeah.
Pole.
It does.
Like
It
Richard
does.
Gere is in
It
this
kind of sounds
movie.
like if Chariots of Fire weren't overplayed and cheesy.
Sure.
Like a little more scaled back. Chariots
okay,
of Fire.
yeah.
A little more
Chariots of
contemplative.
Fire is definitely one of those where I'm like, this song is really good, and I hate it.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you ever seen his synth setup? Like,
That
he's got,
probably
like, all
bought
these-
him a bunch of cars, though.
Yeah.
Chariots of Fire. Yeah.
Watch a video. He has like these old mechanical like things like clunk, like they look really
bonkers.
satisfying. And then like now his thing is strings, and then he clunks this other machine, and now it's playing something else.
I
was
love a good like here are my synths or here are my instruments. Oh man, I can't remember if it's Cliff Martinez or Clint Mansell did a video about like a glass. I don't even remember the name of it. It's called like a glaciopede or something. Whatever. It's like
Glaciopede.
whatever. But
I
it like
want-
plays
Glaci- I
these
want that.
weird like glass cones. I don't remember.
Cliff Martinez's
rotating?
Drive, right? The Drive soundtrack?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Is the
so.
glass rotating while he does it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I forget what it's. Oh, what's it called? It's like a glassophone or something.
Yeah,
like
that's probably
not
it.
a water phone.
Oh,
something different.
phone is probably in
A
there.
water phone is one of those metal things that you scrape, but like they have this thing, and it's actually on the, I think it is anyway. You know Harry Potter, the Hedwig, dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
and there's that sound in the background, it's like
Yeah.
crystal. It's that kind of sound. So
Yeah.
what it does is, like glasses, like a wine glass.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
lick your finger
yeah,
and
yeah,
do
yeah.
that. Well, someone essentially like turned the whole thing on its side and put it on a rotor, so it's always spinning, so you don't have to move your finger up. So you lick your finger. Well, they have water. You dip your finger, and you can actually polyphonically.
Yeah.
So multiple notes play chords on this thing.
That's cool.
very
It's almost
good.
like theremin sounding.
Yeah.
But next time you listen to Hedwig's theme, listen under the celeste, which is like that bell, like doom doom doo doo. You hear like this thing kind of. Wah, wah, wah,
That's
wah.
cool.
And it's I forget
I've
what
always
it's
wanted to
called.
learn theremin, but I hear it's so difficult, right?
Yeah, so
it's a very challenging.
Theremin is like intensity. So like you put your hand in, and that's like off, and then the further out you pull it, the
Right.
louder, and
Yeah.
then the closer you get, the higher. So like a vibrato would be like. Doo,
I've seen some
Good
amazing
theremin players.
performances.
Oh,
yeah.
They're amazing.
that looks like a little dance. Like a dance my
In the
gran
club,
would do.
yeah.
Like the Come On Eileen comes on.
My
What?
Cliff Martinez did the soundtrack to a little-known Soderbergh joint called Kafka.
Is it about Kafka?
Yeah, starring Jeremy Irons as Franz Kafka. It's
Jeremy
hard
Irons.
to get. This movie, when I was a kid, you literally could not get it in America on DVD.
And
I had
what
to
year
watch
is it? Is it
VHS.
like prime hot Jeremy Irons? Because young Jeremy Irons is
I
a
think
whole
I
meal
wanna
unto
say-
Is
himself.
the iron hot?
Let me
You made
look
like
it
a
up.
blacksmithing joke unintentionally. Is the iron still hot?
Kafka, 91, yeah. Early 90s. But it's black and white for most of the movie. But the theme song of this movie made me fall in love with kind of dulcimer style instruments. I have a hammer dulcimer now because of that.
We recorded that.
Yeah,
that's
I
in a
brought it
movie.
over to-
That's in Truth or Dare.
That's in Truth or Dare. I brought my dulcimer over to his house, and we like were there for a few hours, like just hitting it with like pens and like running a bow over it and stuff. It was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
and I was helping my
Did it make it into
friend.
the cut?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that movie.
I was helping my friend Matt Margison, who he's a composer. He was doing a film called Truth or Dare, and yeah, so we recorded all that. Sorry, just a quick funny story. It just cracks me up every time. So this was like one of my first like Hollywood things that I like got a full credit for additional music on or whatever. So we recorded all, and they did end up in there. Great textures, we
Nice.
stretched them out. So I went to see the film with my wife.
I'll have to go see this movie.
And we watched it like 3rd Street, Santa Monica. Anyway, so we watched it like the weekend after it had come out, and we watched it the whole movie. And I'm really excited. And the lights come on, everybody stands up, and this couple next to me, the guy turns to his girlfriend and goes, "Well, that was shit, wasn't it?"
Yeah, I was gonna say I heard it wasn't great.
And I was like, "Oh,
Aw, after all that, what
Just
a,
like
what
my-
a bummer.
But it didn't come on the music.
no, okay."
The
didn't
movie
go,
could be bad, but the music could be great.
if he'd have gone, especially the
Yeah, especially the fucking additional soundtrack.
the additional
elements.
music, the actual music was fine.
Yeah,
It was great.
The additional
The
score.
additional music was lacking.
Those
It was
comments
lacking.
always stab me. Like the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time when I started out in video game journalism, I did an interview with Igarashi, the guy who did Symphony of the Night, a bunch of Castlevanias,
Bloodstained, just-
and I did some of the interview in Japanese and translated. And I was really proud of it, and I talked about some really interesting shit. First comment when I put the article up on Destructoid was, "This interview was ass, IMHO," and I was like, my life has no purpose. There's gonna be one person in the comments here who's gonna give me something mean, and I promise you I will read it, and I promise you will
No,
hurt me.
these people are lovely.
Actually,
would
they're
never-
very nice.
They're usually
very
pretty nice.
Just like random aside note, you know, like the trend at the minute, Facebook making yourself look old.
Oh yeah.
Like just on that, I posted like a normal picture of myself today, and someone was like, "Oh man, it
no.
does
You
make
did
you
the
look
old
old." And I'm
face.
like, dude, I was like, "Wow."
You know, he was saying you look dignified. That was probably it.
No,
You
they were
gotta
like,
put it on positive.
"Dude, why do you look like 50?" Are you using the app?
It was the lighting.
It probably was.
Ooh, I see something fun on that screen.
Yeah, so this one comes
can't
up.
see the screen.
Last question. This one comes up a lot. Is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies have bland music?
Disagree.
You disagree?
Okay.
They have they have a couple of good themes.
They have good themes. Okay, so this
But
goes
by
back.
and large, it's kind of
It goes back to whether or not you think like a soundtrack needs to exist outside of this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's, as film music, it's brilliant. Like when I was watching the film, like the big action sequences, I was thrilled. In the emotional sequences, I was sad. So the music was doing its job. It's not badly done music, but it may not work as well outside of the like the
it's
moment,
not flashy.
like the moment, the big moment at the end of Endgame that you know, not the final moment, but
Yeah.
leading up to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
When that theme comes in over that, you can't.
Oh, yeah.
You can't. No one can sit there and
I've
say
got
it's got
goosebumps
bland music.
right now.
Just thinking about that moment when it's like bam, bam,
Bum,
bam,
bum, bum,
and then
bum, 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 bum,
and then the
bum.
pregnant pause and the pregnant pause in the dialogue. You know.
Yeah.
That's a, you know, like
Yeah.
like that is it working perfectly. So yes, like, but that's the thing. Does it have to be memorable? Because I know that in that moment, like, you know, you feel like you're not going to cry, but you feel like all the emotion, you know, like you feel it. And that to me is good music. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't remember it after the fact as much, unless, but and again, that's what I'm saying. Like with if you have the context for it, regardless of what it will sound like, you will like it. Like people will go watch an Avengers soundtrack being played live. Even if they don't recognize the music, it will feel right. And they'll be like, oh, this must be like an action sequence. It might have been when Thanos was doing this, you know, like, so you get to relive it through the music that way because, you know, if it's very specific, if it's very Mickey Mousey, it's like, you might as well just watch the fucking thing again.
Yeah.
You know, like if it's hitting the cut, you know, it's like just
Yeah.
watch it with the pictures. It's clearly trying to do something specific.
Right.
But then you have other films like John Powell's my favorite for themes, you know, like How to Train Your Dragon or Shrek.
Yeah,
You know,
Shrek's got a great theme.
great themes, you know, they're great examples.
Somebody.
Oh god, they're great examples of like melodic stuff, you know, done well for a film. But with Avengers particularly, there's so many themes and stories to interweave. I feel like it actually, like you said, the Black Panther thing
Yeah.
in Endgame that must, Infinity War that must play for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. And everyone's like, "Wah!"
But you know what I mean? That's a whole film setting up that theme. So
Right.
those 5 seconds. But if you listen to that track after the fact, there's just going to be a random 5 seconds of Black Panther. You know what I mean? That doesn't make for particularly
right.
interesting music.
Yeah, right.
But when you're watching it in the scene, you're like, holy fuck, you know,
Yeah.
like, so to me, it doesn't have to be memorable or anything. Sorry, I've really gone into this question.
I'm
I'm really leaning
into it.
into it. But yeah, so I feel like it doesn't matter too much, you know.
I
feel like
tend to
people.
agree,
I feel like in general people get too into things.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah, I think yeah. Life gives you perspective sometimes, and it's like, yeah, most people are worried about things that don't matter.
That just do not matter. Yeah.
Usually at the end of this show, we do something called the quote challenge.
Are we not doing it? Because I love it. I have something.
One?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
if you have one
tell me
locked
your
and
plan.
loaded.
This
Well,
is
I
your
was
show.
just going to say, show us the rest of these records.
Oh, man.
But let's do both.
Okay.
You feed us a quote. Normally, we come up with a quote and see if the other people can guess what movie it's from.
I always do it too obscure because I have no barometer for what's obscure or not,
Yeah,
obviously.
I have that problem sometimes.
But I'm going to do something that we talked about today.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the quote. Just between you and me, we've got a serious problem with the people taking care of the place. They turned out to be completely irresponsible assholes.
I knew it was going to end with assholes. And it's something we talked about today.
Something we talked about today. I'm going to graduate to another quote. Is that cool? Just to give you more of a hint.
Oh, from the same movie.
Same movie.
Okay.
Here's the 5 miserable months on the wagon and all the irreparable harm it's caused me.
I have seen this.
Man,
I bet you have. I bet you've seen this too. I bet most people have seen this.
Oh, damn it.
I'm not looking at it.
Okay.
I promise.
Light of my life, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. It's a little dark, but that should give you the movie.
I don't know. What is it?
Here's Johnny.
Oh, Shining.
Yeah, The Shining.
Yeah.
Since we were on a Wendy Carlos
Yeah.
Shining trip earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a quote from a movie.
Do it.
Okay, but it's obscure, but it's one we've mentioned. Okay, it's a short one, and it's dialogue between two people. We make out as best we can, as best we could. That's the other person saying
Two
it
people.
back.
Yeah.
We make out as best we can. As
Oh,
best
there's an accent.
we could.
There's an accent. Okay. I have no
What
idea.
is it?
Man on Fire.
It's
That's-
been too long
that's-
since I've seen that one.
So that's the bit. The leader. Well, the policeman. Well, he's in. What would you call it? Hostage negotiator, guy, like a policeman, a corrupt policeman. He's got him tied to the car, because he found out he's in the thing, and he's got a bomb, and he's going to put it up his bum. And the guy's like, "Come on, leave us alone. We make out as best we can. We do what we can." He's like, "As best you could," and then he's like, gives him a medical.
My father-in-law loves that movie. I had not seen Man on Fire. He sat me down and made me watch it with him, but he kept rewinding parts that he loved to show me in the middle of the movie. It took 4 hours to watch
God.
Man on Fire.
On the trajectory of your story,
But I love that dude, so I watched the whole thing with him.
with the trajectory of your stories today, I thought you were going to say he was in it. Like,
Oh no, he's not. I bet he wished
he
he
was
was.
Denzel
Yeah.
Washington.
if I recall, they shot that one with like hand cranked cameras sometimes. It's really cool.
Oh,
They shot it in Mexico. I know that, like, in the behind the scenes,
to
they
give
were
it the
talking
kind
about
of like.
Yeah, to give it that kind
Chaotic,
of and like when
frenetic
things
thing,
were really
yeah.
exciting, they had a
speed
higher
it up.
frame rate.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great film.
You got a quote?
Yeah, he just made me think of one. It is easy. You're a policeman. There are rules for policemen.
Give us a
I have
clue.
no idea.
No more table.
That's also from the same movie. No More Table.
Yeah.
No More Table. Did we talk about this movie this evening, or is this just a?
Or policemen have rules. No, I don't want actual things. I want the quote. I'm just making sure. But
I'm lost on this. It doesn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
have a familiar ring to it yet.
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Damn, I should know that.
It's
Is
when
that,
he's
is that
like-
Gruber
he's
then?
He's pointing the gun at the blonde guy, and he's like, "I'm gonna shoot you," and he's like, "You're a policeman."
Do you mind if I tell you this anecdote related to Die Hard?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so excited you brought this up because I have a podcast devoted to the movie Speed.
Yeah,
It's called
Better
Better
Than
Than
Speed.
Speed. The director of Speed, Jan de Bont, was also the cinematographer for Die Hard. And on Speed's 25th anniversary, he invited me up to his house to go hang out with him, and he told me all kinds of crazy stories about working on Die Hard
These
and
fucking
Speed.
stories.
And
Are you,
I was out of my mind. I was so happy. It was like the funniest occasion. And he was sitting there claiming to us when we interviewed him that Speed's better than Casablanca and Citizen Kane and Seven Samurai. He said he thought it was one of the
Where's
best
the
movies
lie?
in the world.
Where's
yeah,
the lie?
It was so great. Jan de Bont, love him, but he had some crazy stories about Die Hard. So if you want to hear them,
What is this?
Better
life?
than Speed. Yeah,
need
yeah.
to
That's
just-
what I was thinking when I was
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, it was so fun.
Who are you, dude?
But Jan de Bont, very charming guy and an amazing cinematographer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
His stuff is top notch.
All right. let's look at the rest of these albums because some of these are really cool.
I've hid the filth under the thing.
Thank you for
Okay.
indulging me. So no more dirty pictures.
We've got Blue Velvet.
Yeah, this is
Classic.
Angelo Badalamenti. Did I say
Yeah.
that right? I'm not good at Italian.
I usually say Badalamenti.
he
but I
also-
don't know.
He's a badass, so I call him Badalamenti.
Yeah.
He did Twin Peaks also. Amazing score, amazing composer. Oh shit! This is also on Twin Peaks. This is the
Yeah.
band Juju, who
Yeah.
covered. They're like a
Ryan
indie rock.
Stevens
Yeah,
likes
Ryan
them,
Stevens. I saw with Ryan Stevens, Juju cover all of the Twin Peaks soundtrack live in
that
a
what this is?
in a
Juju.
Masonic cemetery.
I've always thought
Yeah,
it was Shushu.
Maybe it's Shushu.
I don't know. It's XIU.
I don't know. They make good music.
I don't know how to
That'd be
pronounce
Juju.
anything.
This one. We didn't get into. Of course, we have to talk about Johnny Greenwood,
Yeah.
who does amazing scores for Paul Thomas Anderson films. He did The Master.
Oh, I thought that was there was a fish in the percolator. What's his name?
What is his name from Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
But anyway, he did There Will Be Blood, The Master. He's from Radiohead.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah. Johnny
he
Greenwood's great.
recently did
He
You
did
Were Never
There Will Be
Really
Blood.
You Were Never Really There.
Oh, I
Or
never
You Never
saw
Really
that.
Here. Joaquin
that
Phoenix
good?
movie. Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm looking the ones we've talked about over here.
Dario Argento did a movie called
I've
Opera.
never seen opera.
This has Brian Eno on the soundtrack, along with Goblin, combined
Oh
together.
my Lord
Yeah,
God.
what a cool combo.
I've heard that Brian Eno does a monthly thing where he improvises music at the same theater that does improv Shakespeare.
Oh shit, and you can hear it live.
And you just sit there and watch him improvise stuff for like an hour and a half. I've never gone, but it sounds amazing.
Firestarter, Stephen King movie with Drew Barrymore. But Tangerine Dream does the soundtrack. While we're talking about synths, Tangerine
Yeah.
Dream is
Oh, yeah.
incredible.
Since for days.
They did
Tangerine Dream.
Near Dark, the vampire movie.
Mm-hmm.
They did, what else did they do? They did Legend, Tom Cruise.
The first Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah, exactly. And their music's incredible.
Yeah.
Like every album by them, you can't go wrong. Just pick one random at a record store, you'll eat it up.
Close your eyes.
Oh yeah, this
It's
is more
another
dirty music.
erotica.
This is more Italian
I'm
dirty
not put off
music.
by 'em.
It doesn't have any
distracted,
images
if
on it.
anything.
Some of this stuff is amazing. There's a song I use on here for my podcast, which is about outer
allowed?
space. Yeah, it's outer space theme for a movie called Space Devils. It's really cool, but it's spaghetti western mixed with erotica mixed with sci-fi.
Now you're
it's
speaking
so
my
good.
language.
Such a good pickup. Oh, we didn't talk about. Now I'm getting so excited. You have to calm
This
me
is
down.
great. No, go
Um,
come on.
I want to see how far this road
This
goes.
one's signed.
This is this is
The next one's signed.
This is for the Herzog
the
Nosferatu
shot-for-shot remake.
This is I'm not sure if it's shot for shot. Is it shot
Nearly,
for shot?
I thought.
It could
He
be.
did a lot
does-
of iconic shots.
Yeah, he has this
Like the
band
boat
that he
coming in.
usually works with, a German mystic band called Popol Vuh. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing them correctly. They use a lot of sitar, a lot of like transcendent acid trippy music, and you wouldn't think of pairing that with Nosferatu, but it's beautiful. It makes the
I
movie
liked
feel
his
really
Nosferatu.
ethereal.
Yeah, that was a cool
Yeah.
movie. And the
Sign
art
one.
on this is so cool. It's like it looks like
Oh, it opens with a cool gate, I think, with the rats taking over, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because this movie, the Herzog Nosferatu, has a lot of rats taking it. There's like 1,000 rats in one of the scenes. Anyway,
cool.
really, really cool.
Love
Hey,
rats.
I was gonna say let's have again.
This is one of the best musicians I've ever come across in my entire life. Fabio Frizzi. He did a lot of Italian horror soundtracks. If you like Goblin, even better than Goblin. He worked on a lot of
Better than Goblin?
Better than Goblin. He did a lot of Fulci movies, including The Beyond. He did the soundtrack for a movie called Zombie, where a shark fights a zombie underwater.
Dope.
And the music is really like spooky organ synthy shit.
Oh my God,
And
that
it's
sounds
so good. I met him when he came to a screening of the movie that he did a live score to. It was amazing. LA's a good place
you
to
got your
live.
record. Yeah.
yeah, to see all your heroes.
Yeah.
Move here and they'll come
Like
through.
on the
one
random
day.
sign things. Like I got a signed CD once from Lorne Balfe, who does the music on Assassin's Creed.
Oh, that's cool.
And he wrote on it. It was like a competition, you know. I forget what it was. It was like follow him on Twitter or something. And I thought, you know, like I knew him already because of the Hans thing. Anyway, and he wrote on it. It was so sweet. He wrote on it like, "You'll probably be writing music for these games one day."
And you are.
And then like, I'm not yet.
But
But like,
like games in general.
Games in
Yeah.
general, yeah.
Yeah.
You
It was
wrote
sweet.
you wrote a kind of you sent me a
yeah, I like
a
so one of the fun things.
theoretical Assassin's Creed song.
Yeah, every now and again, like if there's a project that I'm into, like I'll write a song, like a theme or something. You know, like how an artist will draw like a fan piece. Like I'll write a fan piece. I've done a load of it. I'd love to work on Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. This one's nasty.
Man,
Yeah, all these records are colored. We haven't
Show-
pulled any
show
of them
me-
out, but they're like crazy red and yellow. Oh,
I've
that's
got
what
the
I love
Mondo-
about
I have the
these.
Mondo vinyl for
flip it
Symphony
over.
of the
The,
Night.
the cat one is more disturbing than the human face.
Yeah.
And Silent Hill 2. Someone sent me that. The Mondo.
That's more Fabio Frizzi, the Italian
okay.
composer.
Are you a fan of the Are you a fan of the Silent Hill music, Ian?
Yeah, I like the more like the calmer stuff than the like.
Do you like the song type stuff?
What?
The songs. Like in Silent Hill, he does songs like with the.
I like the other stuff better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he did an album of music like
Oh,
just
yeah,
outside
yeah.
of Silent Hill that's like horror themed.
I think I listened to it.
Yeah, I've got it on CD. I'll let you if you haven't heard it. I'll send it to you.
Shogun Assassin. I have to talk about Shogun Assassin because
Yeah,
this
you
is the Lone Wolf and Cub films.
Oh.
But Andy Warhol had them recut, and he grabbed from a bunch of different movies and cut it into like a 90-minute single movie and he renamed it Shogun Assassin and put a synth soundtrack to it.
Wow.
Composed by Michael Lewis. It's very cool. It feels like the synthy Stranger Things stuff, but you're seeing a bunch of like Japanese martial arts action in the movie.
Man,
yeah,
that's cool.
It's in one of those scores that remakes the movie and makes you look at it a different way. Fans of old Japanese film don't really like it. They consider like the movie a bastardization because
Yeah.
it cuts up things from different movies. I think it shows some of the cooler parts. It makes it more exciting.
Man, I hope if vinyl in general gets a bigger resurgence for film music, they should really use the opportunity to do like the behind the scenes pictures and stuff. Like with the art. Like I'd love to see that being recorded because that one was recorded in Hollywood. It says on the back.
Yeah. Oh,
I'd love to just see that session.
Yeah.
Mike Oldfield, The Killing Fields. This is a movie about Cambodia.
Yeah. My
And-
friend is in Cambodia right now.
Oh, wow.
He just went to the Killing Fields.
So yeah, that's about the genocide that happened in Cambodia, one of like history's biggest tragedies. So I think that's a big challenge to compose something like that.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
how do you you want to communicate the horror of what happened, but how do you do it without making it overwrought?
Well, you have to give the perspective. It's like, yes, it's disturbing, but if you go in like a horror movie, you're doing it a disrespect. Like you have to show like what it means. So, like, what does it feel for this person? What are they feeling? You need to feel distraught. You need the music to feel like longing. You need it to feel like it wants to be safe. So it's sad music.
Well, actually,
That's how you would.
this
usually-
one goes kind of like off track
Wow.
and makes it scary. And it sounds like
Yeah.
right when a lot of people are trying to escape from Cambodia, it starts hitting with like screechy synth keyboard
So it's
stuff.
like a literal.
And it's definitely
interpretation.
like
Yeah.
it's almost like counter programming. You wouldn't expect it because a lot of times these movies sort of do like we talked about this briefly, sort of
gloss
cultural
over it,
appropriation or like, ooh, here's a little bit of local music, but we did our Western flair on it, and that always kind of feels off to me.
I think it actually works. Again, remember what I was saying earlier about like the scene in Back to the Future where you just don't have the context for it. The problem is with a lot of ethnic music as ethnic music, the ear, particularly for Western people, they don't listen. Like let's say like Hindi music, or Indian music, stuff like this. You know what it sounds like now because we've kind of. But if you would just play that in a score with no Western. Like clues as to how you're supposed to feel, you would be completely.
You wouldn't have the
lost.
grounds
Yeah.
to interpret it. That's a good point.
So
yeah.
when you have this score, it's less about like I'm gonna culturally appropriate this and throw my Western thing. It's more like we have a language. Like you have to think of music
Yeah.
as a language. Like people in the West speak Western music. They speak Western music. They
Yeah.
understand it. So if you play something from somewhere else that they don't understand. You don't
have the tools to interpret it.
It's kind of like a dictionary. You kind of hold up the ethnic thing, and then you play with the Western thing how you want it to feel.
Yeah.
So like here's an ethnic thing, and it's supposed to feel sad. So you play the Western sad thing to contextualize this, so that when you play this again, you know that means sad because you played it with the sad. You know what I mean? Like you have to contextualize it for Western ears, otherwise you just don't get it.
When I lived in Chicago, I was in a Georgian folk music folk choir, Georgia the country, and because the director of my college a cappella group just fell in love with Georgian folk music, so I was in this Georgian folk choir, and it was really interesting learning experience because they basically use like a different scale, or they have like flat flats and sharp sharps and stuff, and so like you're singing like between the notes of a piano, and like some of the songs that we would do, like he would make sure to like explain beforehand. He's like, in the Western scale, this is going to sound dissonant or wrong
or pitchy,
but it's not. Like that's very specific notes that we're doing, and like so it's like once you get used to it, you're like, oh, this is beautiful. But at first, you're like, oh, what?
yeah. Well, we have a thing that's called equal temperament. So like all our notes are mathematically tuned to 440 hertz. Yeah, you can actually detune that. Like people say, there's like healing benefits to 432 hertz, or singers in the olden days in like you know, like how people say like D minor is a sad sounding key. It's because back in the day before we had equal temperament, like it was a bit more pitchy, and D minor did actually sound more longing. You know what I mean? Like because the pitches were slightly different, so different keys. At least from what I've read, I don't know because I wasn't there, but yeah. Anyway, random side.
My Behringer Model D has a A440 switch so that you can tune everything to.
Well, I mean, there's certain like a lot of. When you have these things, some instruments just do not play equal temperament. You know what I mean? Like, so the music. So there's like the bells. You know, like what are they called? Is it gamelan? You know, like they're not tuned. You know what I mean? But the music's built around the tones that the bells make, rather than tuning the bells to equal temperament or something. And sometimes that is cool. Like you hear it a lot in like. Particularly war films set in like the Middle East, you get a lot of like oud and like those kind of, you know, those kind of things. But
I love that stuff. I want to get a Santur one day. It's like a hammered dulcimer, but different.
That's text. Like to coin a phrase, it's like textural placement. You know what I mean? It's you're using a text. Like when you play ethnic stuff, you're not doing it to be authentic. You're doing it to this is where we are. You know, and like a lot of the time you get the. You get the very stereotypical, what you might think is like the culturally appropriated.
You know, it's more like a Middle Eastern movie when someone's going to war, and then you'll have that little like, we're in a dangerous place.
It's like
that's more like the stuff I'm talking about.
The best way to think about that is that stereotype is like a word we've created to define that. You know, like that means that. You know, so we're not doing it to mess with it. We're doing it because over time, Western audiences understand that sound means you're there,
right?
So we're going to use it. So it's never you never think about I'm going to take this or that.
I think
it's
Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, it's more like what do people understand, and what's the quickest and easiest way for me to make them know what's going on.
I like it when people kind of take the challenge to break some of that down and move it in a more interesting direction, because like eventually like the grammar evolves. So it's cool when people like chart out and
that was my exact point. You can do it. You can make any sound literally, quite literally. Like I do it. You can make any sound you want so long as you contextualize it with something that people will understand at the same time that means the same thing. So if you make
kind of light the path.
Yeah, like if you make a crazy weird sound and then
introduce it.
Yeah, crazy weird sound. Like you can even do it with images. It doesn't have to be other. I mean, if you're just playing music, if you want this sound to mean sad, you play it with something sad, and it has a context.
Eisenstein.
Yeah, but if you play it against a sad image and you play this weird sound, you'll associate it with that. You know, like obviously you don't just go. You know, like make it make sense. Have it correlate. Maybe like something to do with crying or water or tears. You know, something that you could. Emotionally relate to emotion and then record that.
Or giant ants.
Oh, have you seen Phase 4?
I have seen Phase 4. Sorry, I was
that was a segue that caught me off guard.
As soon as because I was reading this upside down and I was like, this looks familiar. What is that? And then I read it, Phase 4. I was talking about Phase 4 at a party at Glitch City 2 days ago. I was explaining this movie.
It's really psychedelic.
Ants. It's amazing. They shot with miniatures or like magnifying lenses of actual ants. A lot of this movie, and they made them like giant ants. But it had, so the movie goes through phases, but Phase 4 was like lost or like not broadcast originally. And then I saw it at Cinefamily before Cinefamily was all about sexual harassment or whatever apparently, and died. Real weird. Whatever. Cinefamily's a whole thing. But like they showed Phase 4, and it was nuts because. They were like, so we watched the regular movie, which had the regular whatever ending, and then they're like, and here's the Phase 4, and it just goes like full on psychedelic freak out, like the characters are ant sized in this crazy world.
That's like if Mandy was a movie about ants,
right? Yes, exactly.
Essentially, it's
like
got a
Mandy
soundtrack to match.
And yeah, I didn't know. Oh man, but like it was crazy. The Cinefamily thing, they were like, they had people there like talking about it, and then after a while, he was like talking about Phase 4. They had it on a separate reel. You know, and then they were just like sitting there for a second, and he was just like, "Fuck it, let's watch it again." Just play the
How
fourth
could you
part
resist?
It's like 10 minutes long, and it's just insanity. But yeah, this is incredible.
Oh, I'm glad you recognized it. Yeah.
Oh, Phase 4, dude.
That was a sweet
Just
end
watch
to the
a
play.
commercial on YouTube
Phase
of
4
the
is
movie.
amazing.
The trailer will give you the feeling you need.
I loved this.
Yeah.
I went and saw it, and I loved it.
The trailer's the movie itself.
There was also a movie that they showed there called On Silver Globe, which is made by I can't remember his name. I think he was Polish or something, but he like escaped the Bolsheviks or whatever. Like he got out of he was like the official filmmaker for like Warsaw at one point or something, but then like they outlawed him and started like destroying all his films. And so they were making this movie called On Silver Globe, which was like this insane sci-fi movie, crazy weird stuff, super visual, kind of like Phase 4. And he thought it was destroyed, but then they were all fleeing the country, and like parts of his crew like hid reels of the film in like refrigerators and stuff, and they like snuck the movie out of the country. And then like years later, they finally got it to him. And so what they did was he made a movie where he showed the parts that they had and then explained the parts that they never got to do while just showing footage of at that point modern day Warsaw. And like it has this really crazy effect that you're watching this like crazy psychedelic sci-fi and then modern day, well, it's like 90s or 80s Warsaw with him just explaining what would have then happened. It was a really interesting experience. But it reminded me of Phase 4 because it had the like missing fourth reel or whatever. It was super cool.
It's got a cool history to it. I want to see it now.
On Silver Globe. I don't know how you would find it, but what's this one?
Oh, okay. So
we're almost done.
This is Giovanni Tommaso, and basically he worked on a documentary that played on Italian public television about Tokyo. So it's an Italian, almost like a spaghetti western composer, took a trip to Japan, composed a lot of music about what he thought Tokyo felt like, and it comes out through that interesting warped filter.
That's very
So it's like
cool.
an Italian 60s kind of groovy Tokyo vibe. And I've never heard that
different. That's
combo
what
of
it is.
sounds
It's
before.
Very cool.
Yeah, you won't hear anything like it. And it also has a little bit of early 80s PBS feel to it.
Oh, okay.
So if you can imagine that whole wild swirl, like what your parents thought NPR sounded like, but mixed with Italy and Japan.
What's it called? Vivre a
Tokyo Città del Paradiso.
City of Paradise.
Yeah, exactly. Tokyo City of Paradise.
Very funny.
Highly recommend tracking that down. If there's one other person who's a giant nerd like me out there listening, you will love it. Bruno Nicolai looks a little scandalous there. The medical student. I'm sure everything was proper in this movie and above the board. I don't think the doctors did anything that crossed the line. But there is a very evocative leg on the cover.
Yeah, a lot of legs.
Bruno Nicolai is another Italian composer. Lots of fun little synthy, twirly, experimental noises where it almost sounds like a Looney Tunes cartoon, but edgy. An edgy Looney Tunes cartoon.
Edgy Looney Tunes.
To erotic medical movie.
So is it actually pervy doctors?
I think it is.
actually
I
is.
haven't
You've
bothered
not
to see the
seen it?
movie, but the score
Just as a brief
paints a picture in your mind.
Yeah.
This is another Bruno Nicolai, the Insatiable Woman.
Oh, Insatiable.
Yeah, this is probably Bruno Nicolai's best score.
Insatiability.
If you've listened to spaghetti western stuff, you know how they have those choral voices of women who aren't singing words exactly, but they're kind of just like very high-pitched texture.
Yeah.
Radiohead started moving in that direction with Kid A, but there's an entire lineage of Italian film that uses that sort of choral sound.
A lot of anime does that too, like an Eastern style.
Yeah,
like
it's true.
Akira does that. Ghost in the Shell.
Akira's
does
a
that.
great soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Akira's
really
nuts.
cool. Akira. I know I've probably said this a billion times, but another amazing Italian composer, Alessandro Alessandroni. He did a lot of the library music for documentary specials in Italian. So he has one on technology. He has one on underwater life. He has one about campfires. This one is called Ideologia.
Looks like a fish.
It's like a weird ass fish.
If you like Life Aquatic soundtrack that we talked about earlier, you can trace its roots back to this.
Really?
100%.
I mean, they were aping on those like early documentary. Yeah, wow.
100%. So if you love the vibe Life Aquatic gives off, you will also love Alessandro Alessandroni.
Wow.
That's a creative name.
2016.
It is. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing any of this Italian stuff
I'm sure
correctly.
you're nailing it.
I apologize. You probably know this. Jerry Goldsmith,
Yep.
Logan's Run.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool futuristic movie with Michael York. Actually, the only thing that's worth watching in the movie is the first 10 minutes, but it's a really solid first 10 minutes. They have this ritual in Logan's Run where if you reach a certain age, you have to get sacrificed. I think it's like by the time you're 30, they have a lottery, little Hunger Games-ish. But Jerry Goldsmith, one of those early, I think it's late.
He doesn't get mentioned enough. Like Jerry Goldsmith, like the language of Jerry Goldsmith's scores is still prevalent in music today. It's just the way he used to write like music almost like every day. You know what I mean? He would just go into the studio with his people and be like, right, we got to write we got to write some scores. But he comes from like the old TV show days, you know, like the old ones where they would have an in-house composer, an in-house band, you know, and he was one of those guys. So he would write a lot, you know, but he worked out this kind of style that just like, you know, like how everybody has their thing, you know. But his language, like he had his own way of doing melodies and things that you still like hear, particularly in space stuff. You still hear a lot kind of echoed.
100%. Yeah. It's a very abstract, not as melodic as I would think from someone from this era. And I like it when people start branching out. And
that's cool.
Yeah, very influential. And then the last one is Forbidden Planet. This is an early sci-fi movie, and it's got the same thing. Yeah, lots of theremin. I think that's it. I can't believe I get to show off my entire
I love it.
record collection. I was hoping I get to talk about one.
No.
Gosh, I appreciate you indulging me.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into it. I love the art on records. I love, I don't know. Everything about it is cool. I don't have a record player, but I should get one.
It shows the process. It goes from that to that to that.
Yeah. The whole cycle.
The whole cycle. Brain to paper.
And then to like angry comments.
Then to YouTube comments.
The ultimate death of all
This
art.
is piss, you know?
Yeah.
Full stop.
That's what you guys work so hard for, though.
Yeah.
The pat on the back. Yeah.
Well, that'll wrap it up for what was probably a super long episode. I don't know. Time flew. We could have been in here for an hour or 3 hours, and I wouldn't really know.
What is the time?
I have no idea. I'm glad I ate before we started. Whoa!
We burned the house down.
We've been here for a while. Okay. Thank you so much to my guests. How can everyone reach you? Find your stuff.
Best place to find me is on Twitter at H2Daniel. So that's H, then the number 2, and then Daniel. H2Daniel.
H for Americans is H.
Oh yeah. Or DanielJames.la. That's the website.
Oh, .la on the website.
That's
okay.
a website.
That's an internet thing.
That's an internet thing. You can put www. You can be a rebel. You could be live dangerously. You know, just go straight for it.
Get on the World Wide
What about the
Web.
HTTP?
Don't put HTTP.
Don't get carried away.
Never type that. You'll
Don't go
wind
full
up on
coder.
some Italian softcore if you type HTTP. What about you? How do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at SneakDoorBeta. But I really would like to say your viewership are sweethearts.
Oh, they're all
I was
lovely.
joking earlier,
No,
but you have
beautiful.
the nicest comments of anyone on the internet.
They're
It's
beautiful.
amazing. Yeah.
We're small enough still that we haven't gone into asshole waters.
It's coming.
Hope so, I guess.
That
in a
dam
weird
just
way.
waiting to break.
Yeah.
This is piss.
We're not in international waters yet. We're still in our safe harbor.
One more shout out to Huber. That guy's
Huber,
amazing.
yes.
I'll give you one of them.
We miss Huber. He should be back next month, theoretically, but he can take as long as he wants. Yeah. It's been a tumultuous few months here at Easy Allies, what with deaths and births.
Yep.
But we're
Circle of life.
We're still going, so everything's fine.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Thank all of you. If you want to get involved in the discussion, again, that's patreon.com/easyallies. The film club is the $7 tier, so it's less than a ticket to a movie, but $7 is a lot. So if you want to just keep watching and hanging out, that's great too. But yeah, we are every month here at Reaction Shots. Easy Allies has lots of other cool stuff, video games mostly. Check it out. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.